Transcendence. Today, we are going to follow up on what this topic we are fascinated by. We are obsessed with this. We find it so important. And if you've watched the past two videos we've done, we've been truly sticking to this because we find it as this foundational knowledge to know. And this is about the concepts of egregores and pendulums, which I'll talk about more today. I gathered some notes for everybody, and it's something that brings so much awareness, and it gives you so much power because you realize that you are giving your power away. And so we're going to be sticking to this for a while and really breaking it down, and then also breaking down how to navigate around the idea of these egregores and pendulums. And, basically this occult concept, that the fact that in the astral or thought realm, that entities or these structures build up and there's a mechanism. And that's why when we look out in the world, we see so many people look like they fall under a spell. And you watch and you're like, how do they fall? It's a spell. And then you don't want to get too woo crazy. And you're like, well, maybe I'm just nuts. Is this something, whatever? But that's why we're continuing this, to almost kind of decode this concept and keep talking about it, because there is something there. And so when we go back into ancient teachings and we go back and read, so even this manifestation book, Reality Transurfing, talks about this concept, and it's so detailed. And me personally, it's like when something's detailed enough, when it sticks around, I've said this before, there's something to it. So today we're going to continue that talk, and we have plenty to expand on and extend with this topic. And I know Gio he dove deep into almost how to break free from it, or to work with it to where you disconnect a little bit from it. So, and it's a process. And we had probably an hour conversation before about it, and we're excited to bring it to you guys. So elaborate.
Exactly. That's the other thing too, a lot of misconception when it comes into the new age, whether it's looking into occult studies, whether it's some type of magical practices, rituals, even astrology, any sort of things like an esoteric knowledge. It's like, I think there's a huge misunderstanding on how this is supposed to be understood, how it's supposed to be even used. And I think it's also there needs to be a sense of maturity with coming into it, and a forming of structure that has to happen within oneself first.
Right.
And that's something that we're going to also break down into that. We're going to show the relatability when it comes to, whether it's just examples in everyday life, or even with current events too, that we could get into some of that as well. So this is what we're going to be going into like next few, for a while. I'm not going to give a time or date or how long, how many episodes or anything, but this is it, because there's a huge realization even within ourselves, as we're coming to even understand it and relay it as well to you. It's not to hang on to every word that we say of what you have to do or that you have to believe in or anything. It's to really gain a perspective and an insight when speculating the causal reality that we're in, and just life in general. And then we can see how we may partake in certain things that we don't necessarily want to partake in, or understand the resistance that we're met with at times, and why that is. We don't realize how we're putting the rod in our own stokes, so to say. So to keep reiterating that can help. I know it's helped me a bunch to even see it and figure it out even for myself and in my own life, and really being able to give somewhat to a certain depth of a more material, I guess you could say, or more sensible understanding with certain things, because there's a lot within this that isn't, and we are so used to constantly being bombarded with some sort of materialism or material nature of understanding things, whether it's science nowadays or anything and stuff. This is going to elaborate a little bit broader in that sense, to really gain an understanding of it, which that's really what it comes down to as well. So it's good shit.
Systems of thought really has been on my mind, you know, like having different concepts. I'll keep mentioning this too, is parallels I notice in a lot of teachings. And then people end up having these belief systems and they fight over them, but yet they're trying to say the same thing. And then we battle over nuances. We battle over who's right and who's wrong. And it's truly not about that. And learning to grow spiritually and mentally and all of that isn't really about winning or being right or wrong. And I think the rat race, the way society has raised us in this way, growing up in this society, and now affecting the kids even more on the younger, age group and all that. But our age group, being 90s kids, seeing we've talked about this before, like seeing the family life and understanding concepts and things that are supposed to be traditionally the right thing to do. And you realize that there is no right or wrong concept. I think there's one truth in a sense, but there's a million ways to get to it. And I think we all have our own unique way of understanding the truth. And to find yourself is also to find how you process and think and who you are on a spiritual and mental level. And by knowing yourself, you're going to actually understand how it is you need to learn things, how it is you need to process things. And so for me, I've always liked analogies, right? So, and I think analogies is always like you use one symbol, one piece of language, one image to then decode another thing, to raise your consciousness through an analogy is, for me, is humongous. I've learned so many things, and that's just the way I learn. But having these concepts being explained the right way and getting just down to the baseline, foundational way of understanding a concept, it's not about believing that the actual concept is this true thing in a sense where physically with your senses, you could see it, touch it, feel it, sense it in a way where you think it's like, well, I need that to reificate, I guess, if that's a word, like that thing to be true. No, it's actually just understanding the concepts of things. And then can I integrate it into my mind to then become something useful? So, like with the book Alter Ego, I mentioned on the last video, is like, if you could build, say, an alter ego, a lot of podcasters do it. They get in, character about things, and it's a talisman, it's a symbol, and it allows the mind in a way to really integrate and then become something because you've understood a concept. It might not be true, in a sense, on like the literal level, but a concept that you've taken to integrate something into your mind so you can then better your life or expand the way you think and your consciousness. So by going in deeper into what we're going into today with the egregores, and today we're going to talk about the pendulum aspect of the egregores. So this is basically just a kind of a step up from the occult way of explaining this, and it comes from Reality Transurfing, which is a manifestation Bible in my eyes. It's something that has helped me conceptually see the world so then I could take control of my life. And so that's really, in the end, whatever works for you to take control of your life, you do. And in the most pure and non-harmful way possible to other people, to yourself. And if anything, how are you bettering your own life? And in that way, you're bettering the lives of others. And I think that's the big picture goal here. But there's a way to get to that. And a lot of what Gio has kind of discovered really has it will be a nice starting point in a way to understand.
Yeah, I believe so, because it's like we'll be able to see the connectivity of, once we have this understanding and the acceptance of these concepts of egregores and pendulums, and being able to see them more for kind of what it is, and rather than trying to, maybe deify certain things or go towards a conspiratorial route, kind of just see more so that sense, and then being able to, you'll see the connectivity of the processes for these things, or the makeup of even how they form, how they come together. How is it something that it's not even material and then it becomes material and stuff? We'll be able to further break down those processes, and then how we actually have the same concepts within ourselves, how we have the ability to influence or distract or anything and stuff as well in that way. And kind of like, maybe like you said, right, the starting point of what kind of actions can we start taking today to whether to it's to avoid or go to, or to heal. Either or, this comes into play with a lot of different things, and you'll see how this connects even to the grander scale. But the first thing is to go on a smaller scale, go with something what we know, something that we're more familiar with, and it's with ourselves as well. And then you'll see how this plays on the bigger scale, as well as like what we talked about with the Earth's grid, the ether, energy, magnetism, how it's moving and stuff. And we'll be able to see how it goes hand in hand. And you'll be able to see this throughout all things then, when you come to have this grasp on this understanding, rather than seeing, maybe some sort of crazy mystical, like, I mean, it is, in a sense. I don't want to take away from the mysticism of it, because it is, but to stop outwardly placing it and trying to doll it up all the time as some sort of thing, and make it cool and some sort of new age movement or whatever and stuff, because that's the very thing that's causing a bigger misconception of it. And then on top of it, it's fading away from some of these older breakdowns and the older teachings of this stuff, the keepers of this type of knowledge as well. It needs to be passed along and preserved. It takes maturity to be able to do that. It takes discipline as well. Not just to sit there and make it some cool fad or hip type of thing or anything, which we see a lot of that happening today. So without further ado, let's get that going.
Yeah. Well, and I'll start with this. It's like, okay, so what's the goal here? It's, if your energy, let's use the analogy, here we go, of you have a bank account, and you realize, or you don't realize, that, we'll say this, we'll realize that for some reason in your spiritual bank account, in your savings, it keeps fluxing. It goes up and down. You don't realize, well, why is money being taken out of my account? And I don't see why. And it's like as if there's this invisible thing sucking the money out of your account. And so if you take that concept and then you translate it to spirituality and your spiritual self, that the concept of an egregore is that thing that's taking the money out of your account. And you don't realize it, that you actually signed the contract. Why is this thing? I never agreed that this thing could take money out of my spiritual bank account. It's like, no, you did. You signed a contract without realizing it. And it's one of the big Ponzi schemes of our society, of the rat race. And for this episode, this talk, please suspend beliefs. And I say it all the time. I don't care it's not about what you believe. Not that I don't care about what you believe. I care about what you think, but more so like in a way, so you can just suspend that, so you can understand what I'm saying, and then really start to reflect in your own life if you see what we're talking about. So with this concept of in this rat race that we've been, there's this Ponzi scheme, and it's a spiritual Ponzi scheme. And what it is you're giving your power away, say, to this entity, to this information structure. And so where did you sign the contract that you didn't realize you signed the contract? When you agreed to it, when you focused on it, when you thought those feelings and you accepted it in your mind, you accepted it in your conscious. And when once it had sunken in to your unconscious mind, now the contract is signed. That's it. So now it's going to siphon, because you're in agreement, and the agreement always comes from you. So where that plays into the Ponzi scheme of society is from the way it's built, the structure, the government, your birth certificate, social security number, all of that stuff. We talk about sovereignty all the time. People think sovereignty is just physical. I'm sovereign. I burned up my straw man social security number and I'm off grid and whatever. No, there's a spiritual sovereignty. And by understanding the concept of pendulums, and today we're going to call it pendulums, which, if you want to know what the other way we put it was egregores, and I'm sure we'll bring that up every now and then. If you want to understand it more, go to the last video, the last episode, and it's in the title. But I'll call them pendulums today, is that these pendulums, these energetic structures, are the loan sharks, or the they're the bankers. They're the ones, the bankers that are taking that money. And so let's get an idea, a deeper idea into this concept, go deeper, and then really let's lay down some rules and some laws, and understand how these things could potentially work. And then with what Gio brought to the table today, is it's kind of a way to kind of start tearing up the contract. It's a way to break free of the contract, to void it. It takes time, it takes effort, and it takes awareness, but it's something that can be done. And then with that, you can then in turn start manifesting the life you want. But until you do it, you're going to manifest what these pendulums want, what this energetic structure created by groups of people wants from you. So there's a way to break free from it. There's a way to function with it, because sometimes you can't defeat it, but there's a way to work with it and then start developing your own personal spiritual sovereignty.
Yeah. And a lot of times what you want is not necessarily what your soul, what your spirit wants. Mm-hmm. So it's also coming into, learning this as well, and understanding practices and techniques as well, comes into being able to have a better knowing of what that even is, or how to get in touch with that as well. There are processes to do it. And it's once again, it's mindfulness. It's overall mindfulness. And once you break it down, it's not just going to be that typical, word mindfulness that that you hear from your local therapist or anything, or, something like that. It's going a little bit more deeper into it. Yes, exactly. And yes, concept. Yes. And then you're getting a stronger, I don't want to say sense, because you're getting you're getting a stronger sense, but through relieving yourself of trying to know and understand things through the senses. So, but we'll go more into that afterwards. But yeah, so the whole pendulums as well, think about just what a pendulum is, how it works, the little ball things, how it distributes energy and the force of it and stuff like that. Right there alone, you can see that there is, if you're somebody who needs to see the tangible, practical, scientific side of things as well, you can see how this is in fact very real.
I never thought about this, but it also goes in line with the 7 Hermetic principles. And one of the main principles, the first one is all is mind. So your mind is everything, and what you think is everything. But with the pendulum, there's, I think one of the most important, they're all important, but this is one of the most to understand this concept, is the law of rhythm. So the more that there is, say, 2 sides that it swings, and the more this side reacts, and there's more force that comes down and hits this side, then this side goes up even higher. And then it builds momentum, and there's a rhythm to it. Doop, doop, doop. And so by understanding the concept, we're going to see how it works with the mind, because this is all mental. This is all thoughts. We've heard many times now in, say, New Age teachings that mind is everything too. It's definitely a popular thing to think about right now with the Neville Goddard movement and all that. If you are a big manifestation person, and everything, is mind. Everything is energy. Everything is emotion, energy and motion. And so by maybe grasping the fact that, okay, so because everything is mind and everything is energy and motion, well, then how do I work with that? And are there mechanisms? And what made me see it, what was the clearest of all, is 2 things. And first one was sports. And I've been talking about this all week, is the momentum, say, of a football game. Or you could feel it. You could feel a momentum shift, and you'll hear these guys talk about it. Oh, the momentum changed in the game, and once this bad thing happened, the pendulum swung the other way. So within a football game, this competitive thing, it's like this. There's this pendulum over a football game, and on top of that, you have football fans. And then you start realizing there's a hierarchy to everything. So then you have the football team, then you have the coaches, then you have the fans, and there's this whole hierarchy of little pendulums over each thing, which then creates this whole big pendulum, this whole thought structure where concepts, ideas, thoughts, emotions of the people that are involved and that are observing are then feeding it. And so that's how I would say it works, is so these things are fed through the attention and the energy of its adherents.
Exactly right. I mean, that's really it. And another thing is like the fact of like people may think, because in our, you know, materialistic way of thinking, it's like, oh, well then, you know, can an object, is an object an egregore? Like,
Anything can be.
like money or something like that. And it's like, well, there's a concept behind it. That's the egregore. An object itself isn't an egregore. It's the mechanism or the anchor for it. So, you know, there's always a mouth and a back end to everything, you know, or so it's like, it's the mouth, money itself. Paper money is in fact the mouth. But where's the belly? Where's the back end of it? You know? So like, direct feeding is meditation and intentional emotional setting. Indirectly is conversing and bringing up, you know, the bringing up even the emotions behind it and stuff. So say like you're talking about a band with somebody and getting exciting and reliving the moment and stuff, or like your favorite songs and stuff that you guys enjoyed, or maybe you went to that concert and stuff. In that moment, you're feeding the egregore itself of that band, of that, or even just the scene of it as well.
Mm-hmm.
So the difference between a thought form and an egregore is the notion of collectivity and collective action, particularly around minimization of thought and action. So it's more so of the less is more kind of thing too. It's like not necessarily always an action or something. It's the thought. It's the thought of it, and it's only showing the power of what the mind actually is and what it does.
And it's the charge, you know, like your emotions about that specific thing is the charge. It's what it would feed off of. And so I would say probably the most important, what have you made agreements on, you know, with yourself and with other people? You know, there's your egregores, there's your pendulums. I'll say pendulums. Your pendulums are there for where the agreements you've made. I am a Bucks fan. I am a metalhead. I am Italian. I am that. All concepts. They're not true. They're only things we've used as images and say our background, our DNA, what other people have said these things are. They've defined them. And then we take these things and then we say, okay, I agree. And then you think that words aren't powerful. You think that's not happening, but yes, on a spiritual level. And where's my evidence? We'll go deeper, but football teams, political parties. I think we can all see the past 2 years with political parties, media, CNN, Fox, all of these things. Man, how are people thinking so crazy? It's like as if they're under a spell, because this is a thing. And for me, I'm saying it is because I'm watching it. I see it. I've learned about it and I say, oh, I have speculated. And I'm like, it's no doubt in my mind that this is at least something this is a lens you could see through into the world and notice it. And then by noticing it, then you have control, you have power, because now now nothing can feed off of you, or at least you could choose what is feeding off of me. But when you do see it, and the scary part, I'll be honest, a little scary, I guess, or a little, you start feeling a little isolated, is if this does cross the barrier and you truly grasp it, and then you start thinking, well, okay, I get it, and I'm investing in this, and then you watch other people, it's so difficult to then break people out of those pendulums, of those spells, getting them out of those things, because they're comfortable. It's become second nature. And we never learned about this stuff. This is why I said it last episode. Why is the occult? Occult means hidden. Well, of course it is, because it's power, it's knowledge, it's wisdom. The application of it is the wisdom part. And so what have you made agreements on? Where have you agreed with yourself that this is in your life? Down to, man, I always hit that red light. I always hit it. It's an agreement. And so now, if you've thought that way for so long and you've gave it plenty of emotion, that's why it's so hard to kick it, because this thing tends to want to feed off of you. And when you have more than two people gathering and thinking of a thing, that's when it tends to kind of have its mind of its own after a long time. It's
Mhm.
taken enough energy. The pendulum is on a big enough swing that you're going to have to wipe out all its adherents, all the people that have agreed to it to get it at, like, it has its own momentum now. You don't need
Yeah,
to nudge it with your energy anymore.
exactly. It's its own self-sustaining, you know, cycle of energy, when it comes to the whole
Rhythm.
thing, kinetic and potential energy, like it's free flowing in that sense. And therefore uh we can tap into those pendulums, whether it's because of pure interest of something, like say something like a sports team or whatever. It's obviously something that that's like not necessarily, it's like, oh well, what are you trying to say then? It's like a pendulum, like a sports team is bad, and it's like, no, it's not. The thing itself is not actually bad, doesn't necessarily have to be the concept. It's the product which comes from that thought form or those emotions. It's not saying that those are bad either, but it's like,
No,
that's
eliminate good
where,
or bad in this.
yeah, exactly.
This is
That's the
not
thing, is
about good
like
or
pick
bad. It's
apart.
about control and no control.
Yeah, exactly. You got to pick apart the thing, and it's being able to have an awareness, being able to be mindful of these certain things so that you can further understand your development and your growth, especially if you are somebody who is, and I'm guessing you are, if you're watching this, somebody who is into, the occult, or, the esoteric stuff, or spirituality, in any form, and are looking to reach some sort of, um, abundance or enlightenment or anything in that sort of way. Not guaranteeing that you are going to have some sort of enlightenment. And that's the other thing. It's the stigma around what that is. You need to let go of it. You need to let go of what that is. There's a lot of things that it's going to take a lot of letting go of. There's more letting go than there is of trying to grab and receive and do and stuff like that. It's a lot of it's going to start with the letting go. And this is how we're going to show that it's the process of the mind, especially when we even see it, when we think about, the creation of everything, the creation of reality, our reality, whatever it is, time and space, all that, it all goes hand in hand with it, because, there is, we're understanding that this is all happening through the ether, and whether the pendulum is a specific frequency and everything that you happen to fall into or tap into, whatever it may be, you kind of want to be able to have the discernment within yourself, is why am I doing this? Why am I into this? Why, like, what is this
Yeah.
bringing to me? Do I like it? Do I not like it as well? If that's the case, what is it forming within me, within my thoughts and within my actions? And is that potentially a reason why maybe things are going a certain way? It's not to displace the blame on the egregore or pendulum itself, or the concept of it. It's to understand that, like you even said, right? It's that choice. There is a choice. Understand you even have a choice in all this is the most important aspect of it. But it takes the mindfulness, it takes the awareness, and the true understanding and understanding. And if you can't get that just through even what we're saying right here, right now, there is more to be able to get that.
Yeah. Yeah. And so let's add a little level of importance for you.
Mhm.
Is there things that happen in your life? And I would be generally asking this. Is anything happening in your life over and over again? And you've always wondered, well, man, that thing always happens to me over and over again. Soon as I'm about to do this, bam, that, shit, it gets to, why? Here's one of mine. Every time I tend to talk about something that I have a goal, like, I've set a goal, I've set intentions. This is my plan. Gio could vouch, because the one day I sent him a song I produced and I sent him it too early. And to me, I was like, damn it, I shouldn't have sent it, because every time I send something or make a plan with somebody else, I love the way Saban put this, but it backfires. Man, why does it always happen? Why is it always when I speak of something, before it happens, it backfires? Why is it usually the things I want come out of nowhere? Like, as if, well, shit, I wasn't waiting for it. It just happens to pop up. And I'm pretty sure a lot of you can relate to that. Is that so? And you notice these patterns and you think, well, why does that happen? Well, I just have good luck. I have bad luck. Oh, that's just the way life is. No, that's not the way it happens, because there is a formula. There is something at work here. And so a lot of it will have to do with these pendulums. A lot of it will have to do with, like, even if, like, say you're big into manifestation and then you try to manifest certain things and you're like, man, it just doesn't work. Well, a lot of it will probably have to do with the paradigms you've actually allowed to creep into your subconscious, things that your parents told you, your friends told you when you were a kid, things that were at school. It don't matter, whatever another human being told you and you allowed to sink in and you started believing. You've actually now accepted another idea from somebody else that actually is probably a pendulum, an energy structure, now latched onto you. And so, and if you don't believe the actual physical concept or physical thing, use the concept and really envision it in your mind. Use your inner tuning fork and say, well, could this be a thing? Absolutely, because things repeat. There's patterns. They happen over and over again. And we tend to say, oh, it's just the way life is. That's just, always happens like that. We're trying to discuss the functionality of that. And here could be a big key to unlock why it is you and me and all of us keep getting certain things in our life, whether it's on an individual state or a collective state. So,
yeah, well, that's a big part of it too, is like to understand the processes of it and what and how to start working, with these concepts and within yourself, and to be able to know where to get started. That's the key to being able to maybe release some paradigms as well that are kind of not just ones of our own as well. For example, look what's going on today. You see it a lot. There's a lot of articles constantly saying about, and I know that many people say it as well, is that that it's like democracy is in danger. There's this constant attention towards everybody expressing the fact that democracy is in danger of coming to an end, that our rights are going to be taken away, that there's no liberation and freedom, and where that may be true, that may be what we're headed towards. But do we take into account and factor in the fact that that there's much that's being performed on the world stage, there's much that we're taking in and having attention towards, and feeling certain emotions and getting riled up about things, and just kind of feeding back into it our emotions, and then the way we act upon life, whether it's the fact that's like, well, I'm not gonna do this now because I'm worried about that this is gonna happen and stuff, and I gotta keep my money here, and I'm not gonna do this with it or anything and stuff. And that very thing can help break you out of that certain fearful emotion. It can bring you into a state of feeling that sort of bliss within yourself that allows you to have some sort of creative, inspiring, thoughts that allows you to perpetuate something more harmonious and balanced throughout life, throughout your immediate environment. And that also passes along to other people. If you're inspired by something and you make something of your inspiration and you express it creatively outward, and it has the potential to inspire somebody else, then they have some sort of way of being able to creatively bring something together and then express it outwards, and so on and so on and so on and stuff. And therefore it becomes bigger. It becomes bigger the same way that these more what we consider negative pendulums or egregores, how they're being perpetuated. They're using the same, and when I say they, I'm keeping that broad. They're using the same tactics, same concepts, same theories, same techniques and everything in order to produce these results that are more of a chaotic nature as well. And realistically, there is a way to counter it.
And it's understanding the functionality. And that's why I think, and Gio thinks, and I can speak for him again, is that this is why getting down to this conceptually is more important than the who, when,
Yeah.
whatever.
Bring it back to yourself.
Yes. And how can you relate to it? And how can you at least wrap your mind around a specific thing? Because my evidence is always patterns. Why do you like astrology so much? Why do you believe in that stuff? There's no evidence. There's statistics, but there's also patterns that as a musician, that I've strengthened my right side of my brain through hard practice of being a musician. And that it's a study, like musicians tend to strengthen the corpus callosum, which is the center part, the bridge, and then the right mind. And so what does that mean? Well, patterns. I'm a pattern oriented person, and I'm also a skeptic, and I'm also someone who has a lot of discernment. And some people could argue that, but those people are usually too rigid, because there's being too rigid too, so it's someone who's trying to have an imagination, figure out things. It's like, well, this guy is gullible, it's like, no, I entertain thoughts, I speculate, and as a musician, I've noticed patterns. So with astrology, boom, that's what made me get into that. And so it's funny, gematria. We watch Zach from the Gematria Effect. He is going off patterns. He types in words, they end up being numbers. It's a pattern. Holy shit, I'm connecting dots. And he is so invested because he sees the patterns, and so do I. So when it comes down to this concept of the pendulums, patterns, I see it everywhere, and we could prove it. And I'm sure that with the things we discuss further, you'll be able to go and think yourself going, holy shit, I understand. Holy shit, I see it. Okay, so continue. How do we work with this? How do we prevent this? How do we maybe not even say destroy it, but how do we make it work for us? It's kind of like saying there's no way to get around breathing air. You have to breathe in and you have to breathe out. It's just the way the life is, and that's the way it works. So on the etheric level, on the spiritual level, this could be this breathing process where it just happens to just be. There's no way for it to work any other way. That's it. And if it is that, if it's so, which I believe so, is then, so now we are aware of something, yet now we could use this thing that we were not told about, that was kept from us, and now continue to start to take our power back, start to have networks of people, but not be lost in groupthink, in the group mind. I brought up the whole thing, the one talk with the 100th monkey effect. Go look that up, or go watch that talk. It's like, they studied this on animals, that there tends to be this thing that happens between animals where one little monkey learns something on an island and there's 100 other ones, 99 other ones, and all of a sudden it's like they grabbed it out of the ether. Well, and I'll let you get your piece in here, but like, well, Ray, the ether, what proves the ether? Well, one, the internet runs on the Ethernet. Two, and I use this analogy and will continue to use it, when you make a phone call, when you get on Zoom, where does this come from? Through wires? No. Satellites, through towers. But where's that traveling through? What's that traveling through? The ether. So that means then if this ether is there, and you know nothing about it, I know nil about it, whatever, but these concepts start to come up, and it's something to do with this etheric law that continues to happen, and you could see it with patterns. Well, okay, let's dive in. Let's speculate. Let's see if this could be the truth. And if it is so, we've just gained wisdom and power and the ability to take our sovereignty back spiritually.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing. And it takes a collective effort as well. It's like, yes, it's there's very much so in the beginning. It's but I mean, it's something that could be done also like in the process as well. It's a lot of individual work. And it's like when you're doing that work, that's why there's such an importance on not just hermiting it and just keeping it to yourself, because it's almost doing an injustice, to, yes, create a structure within yourself as well. But to also be able to network and work with like-minded people, and to be in that state of, communication, and having a very mercurial aspect to it as well, because just how those maybe what we consider negative pendulums or egregores have developed, it has been through communication, has been through what's it called? Programming. It's been developed through this sort of broader sense of of getting it within the minds of others, so one way or another and stuff. So therefore, you need to kind of be able to have a community aspect when involving, occult studies and nature of our reality, and in order to gain certain perspectives, or to give certain perspectives as well. And to have a sense of maturity, and not to go into some sort of psychosis as well from it, and kind of reach past, break to a limit, and therefore just completely fall apart. And because it can be bad, it can be dangerous. And these are the things that are made to look scary when it comes to involving yourself with this type of esoteric knowledge and stuff. But it's really the sense of it's not being done with a certain sensibility of the mind, of being able to
integrity,
flow into it. It's trying to have some sort of gratification, instant gratification through something as well. And also not hermiting it keeps you in check, keeps others checking you of not being overly righteous, developing some sort of superiority and stuff, because that alone, that superiority, ends up becoming the same thing that'll stunt you. Because when you do have that aspect of being able to come in contact with others and stuff, which we all have to do it, and you have a certain mentality that's unchecked, you can come into a lot of problems and a lot of resistance as well. And then wonder, why isn't this working for me? Why is this happening as well? And then you fall back in the same pattern, same routine, victimhood, all that as well. And you have to start over again, or you may not end up being able to start over again. You might go too far.
Happens to a lot of people. Yeah.
Exactly. And and it's always the questions, why me, why this, how come I did this and this is not happening, or whatever. It's because of the maturation process of which you're going into it, and the discipline, the actual practice of it, the proper communication of it as well with others, and trying to gain more of an insight and perspective on it, and to speculate more experiences of others, as well as expressing your own. And this alone will be able to build up a sort of pure intended type egregore on its own, and allow the pendulum to swing to kind of knock out the other one. And it'll go back and forth, and it'll go back and forth. But that's why I think we minimize the fact of how much potential we all have. We think like, I'm not gonna, what am I gonna do? I'm one person and stuff. It's not the sense of even being like, to have the mentality of like, I'm going to save the world. That once again is going into the righteousness. Is the fact of doing your part, doing your part with others. Yes,
simple.
Exactly.
It's simplicity. We Hollywood did this to us, where we dramatize everything. We see this big thing. I want to be the superhero. It's like, no, the way to be the superhero is actually to be humble. And it's also about, it's funny. Here's the paradox of the universe. To be selfish is to be unselfish, because when you're taking care of yourself, and I'm saying on a spiritual level, like a healthy spiritual way of saying, I'm getting in touch with myself. I realize what my gifts are. I'm doing something that makes me happy. That energy radiates out. And also, like, without talking about spiritual stuff, you say even just psychologically, you're going to treat people better. You want to do good things for people. And a great analogy for what you were talking about, by the way, of like, I forget the word you were using, but to just give the give back of things is like, hey, don't just harness this in and whatever, like do things for other people. It's like, well, okay, the earth, we're in a fractal universe, right? And that what proves a fractal universe is that humans come out of humans, right? So it's a fractal. The thing itself is coming out of the thing itself, and the reflection of that little thing is in the big thing. You know what I mean? And the same thing with the universe, right? Well, look at the earth. And the earth is this big organism that grows trees and has water, and it's 80% water and yada, yada, yada. And all the aspects basically are a mirror image of you. What happens to your body when one cell says, well, fuck the other cells? I'm not helping those. I know how to fix the body. There's information in me that's going to help cure this cancer. But I just want to sit in my little pocket here and just be left alone. I don't want
There's
to
a disruption.
hermiting. That's what you were saying. And it's like, no, like we are as humanity, they're also trying to and they, remember, I'm generalizing, be just the opposing side. No names, no labels.
Yeah.
Just they, as in not who is for us, but against us, is they divide us. And when you divide, say, an organism itself and getting it fighting against itself, I think we call that autoimmune disease, it dies. And so I don't think we have forever to fix this problem. I also know that it's the shifting of a new age, not in the notion of new age like unicorns, but new age as in just astrologically. And so with that, right, in this new age, it's like, well, it's like almost like the old body, the old age, the old body, the old structure of things has to die. But it doesn't mean on the physical level, but not death like everyone's going to die. The word death is just the ending, right? So this society, the way it is, everything we know it to be from the last age of the last 26, what is it, 200,
2,160.
And so with that, right, those many years, and we're going by the cosmic clock here, is like, okay, well, that body, that ego now has to die. It's time to upgrade the iOS. And as human beings, we also have our own little mini ages where we have to go through these deaths and then rebirths and all that and upgrade our iOSs. So you can see the analogies all over everything. A car's not going to function unless every part works together. Humanity is that, all these things we've created from technology, self-help systems, games, politics, not politics so much because they're abusing it, but these things are built to actually have a camaraderie, a network, and that's how the things work. Not one thing. The lens on my camera isn't going to work unless the 100 other parts in it does their part. And that's what we have to learn as humanity. And so by getting down to the nitty gritty of the way the ether and the reality works, which is an ongoing thing. It's like, don't think you ever always have the answer. This shit could be bullshit in 10 years, but it could lead, by understanding this, could lead to the real answer. So never get angry at someone for trying to study a specific area. So it's like, this stuff could lead to that. So it's about understanding that networks are a very important thing. Share with your fellow man and care for your fellow man, because they are a reflection of you, and you will not survive much longer in the long term if you don't have your fellow human beings. The other, say, with us trying to battle this cancer off the earth, we need as many white blood cells as we can to fucking take this out. So it's just that, analogies, man. I said at the beginning.
What's the saying? It takes a village to raise a child. There's, I know that
it takes a
little
Jesuit to raise,
or it takes a Jesuit, sure, and raise a child, dunk it a few times, and there you go.
What was their quote? If you take give me a kid at 8 years old, and I don't even know if I want to finish, but it's something fucking nasty.
Something dark. Well, that's not
like sexual nasty, like nasty, like you're like, oh my God, they really said that? Like,
yeah, well, I mean, look at the Jesuit oath of how that, like, you see how they have that's what I'm saying. There's an egregore. Yeah, there's so many potentials. And like, even that made in the Council of Trent, it's an idea, a congregation of multiple people on an idea and a thought and a concept or whatever, and them all adhering to it, abiding by it, creating symbolism in order to represent
their sigils.
Yes, sigils. Yeah, there you go. Okay.
Well, you were right on. They have their symbolism, but look up what sigils are. They're charged.
It's funny because that word just actually came up before, and I was actually going to look it up to better understand it myself, and I didn't. But
well, I do have we could go a little deeper into that after you get done with your point. But sigils are all over the earth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. So therefore, and it's good. I'm glad that you're going to get into that as well with the whole.
It's a simple concept.
The representation of symbolism is tough, and then ritual is itself. That's the other thing. I think it's a clouded understanding of rituals, of how, what they actually are, how they work, the representation of them as well. Whether you think they're bad, whether you think they're good, doesn't matter. It's like that whole thing. You can look at it in every sort of thing. But once you can see that in everything and see it for what it is, once you come to the knowing, the real inner knowing of yourself, and not the self of your name, that you're a son or daughter, their sister, brother, father, mother, or anything of that, your nationality, not that. the knowing of the divine soul, the knowing of prime actuality. You come into that. And therefore, that's when you will begin to see in every part of life, and you end up becoming more mindful to everything, and therefore have a better approach to everything that you do. Not saying that you're not going to make mistakes. We all make mistakes, but there's going to be less of them, most likely, less of the mistakes and stuff, because you're channeling in something that's coming from that's coming from the real uncreated, undivided, unconditioned, formless aspect that really has generated our reality. So,
and it's
but
giving
yeah, I
me,
definitely want you to get into that.
yeah, well, and just to add to that was, like, just look at this stuff as a manual. Like the occult is basically, to me, is a manual to manipulate and get desired results energetically, like working with the ether, and these specific things end up being actually like not as woo woo as you would think. I forget who said this, and I'm going to paraphrase it, but it's oh my God, spirituality and like all this metaphysical stuff is just the science we don't understand yet. That's like, it's all it is. So like all this woo woo stuff is just something we just happen to lack the understanding of, where us as humans try to take things so like literal and logical, when yet it could be just coded language in a way to, an analogy, like it goes back to me with analogies. God, please, someone take my advice, is analogies. Find the things where if you're learning a concept, take the analogy of something you already understand and compare it to that. And I promise you that will unlock so many ways to understand other things you don't get yet. So with something like a sigil, it's like, okay, there's this creepy symbol and it looks like a pentagram and it's like, all this stuff. But then when you learn about how the subconscious mind works, is what happens is they use sigils, because when you agree to yourself and tell yourself that this symbol means this, and there's ways to make them, and there's laws of how it works, and I guarantee it's very psychological, and there's reasons why these people do it. I'm starting to learn that really all of these little weird things and rituals and dressing up in robes and wearing a fish hat, it's psychological in a way. It's doing something on, you would think, oh, in this woo-woo crazy way. It's like, no, it's doing something to the mind. And going back to the first law of Hermetic laws, is all is mind. So it's like, if I can do something that's going to imprint my unconscious mind and like break the barrier of my conscious mind, then that thing then in turn goes in, and then that helps me create my reality. So with a sigil, all it really is a pink slip. This thing means this, and I know it means that. And so because of that, I'm going to draw it out and put it all over the place. And even when I'm not paying attention to it, my subconscious sees everything. And so it'll catch it and go into my eye and go into the mind and then sink in the more and more I see it. And that's kind of the simple concept of it. And so you would say, well, with these weird occultists, like, why do they why do they burn the symbols up? Why do they use like herbs and whatever? The stronger of a ritual you have, it's all about fooling this. If you're convinced that this thing, I'm going to draw this thing, I set my intentions, I meditate on it, I burn it up. And in my mind, I'm like, that's going to work.
Yeah.
And I forget about it. That's how these people used magic to manifest things. And it could go, anything could be magic,
go in any direction.
It could be like, well, every time I get in my car, I got to knock on the window 3 times before I get in. And it's like a superstition I have, right? Well, it actually ends up being real because you believe it, and that's magic. So if you forget to knock on your window one time because you think it's going to be bad luck, guess what? You've just increased the probability, because in your unconscious mind, that thing means that to you. So it goes back to these agreements. So a sigil is an agreement. Being in a group is an agreement. Doing a ritual is an agreement. You're deciding. It's all about decision, really. And it, like, see how it starts to be a little more simple? You get down to really the basics and you say, oh, well, it's just about imprinting the mind. And then when you understand the laws of metaphysics and the Hermetic laws, that all is mind and we create our reality through the mind. but through the unconscious mind, through the subconscious.
Mm-hmm.
And so whatever it is, it's like the universe is so smart that it gave you this thing that creates your reality. And then the more people that you have thinking the same thoughts with you and the same emotions, the more that actually instills the reality. But where it's most intelligent is you can't do it with your conscious mind. You can't fool the universe. You can't, because think about how many thoughts you have, bad thoughts you have a day. With people with anxiety, think about how quick they would perish if the way it worked is you think it and it comes true, opposed to that you have to really feel like it's going to come true for it. So when you say, well, what about people that fear flying, and why don't they ever get in the plane? Like they fear it. Well, fear, false evidence appearing real. Those people don't believe in their fears. What the fear is they know it's not true, but there's that nagging mind and dissonance saying, well, what if it happened? What if it happened? They don't, I mean, it doesn't mean they believe it. And that's why they don't manifest it.
Mm-hmm.
So you get the concept here. It's all is mind. And it's a matter of, can you fool your mind to imprint an idea? And so with these rituals and occult magic, that's how they do it. And the occult knew this. They knew the functionality of the unconscious, subconscious, superconscious mind. Mm-hmm. And then on top of that, now you add that idea to a group of people. And so then the more people believe something, the more people they have that have emotions about something, the more it's going to manifest. So the more we sit here and bitch and moan about life, about the government, about our neighbor, about whatever it is that you can't stand, and then you rally up at the fucking, the club down the street, and you're sitting there, you just jumped out of your bathtub, said, I got to go down the street and bitch and moan with my friends. You are only perpetuating the thing because you are feeding the egregore. You're feeding the pendulum. So I hope at this point you kind of get that. Sorry, I got a little passionate there.
No, I love it. That's what we need. Passionate expression of ourselves, inspiration in that sort of way. Right. You know what I mean? And that's really it, because it is the matter. It is the mind. It all comes down, chalking it down to the mind, and being able to see it on that point and on that level. Once again, it will go into every other thing. It will go into everything else that you see as well. And having the understanding of having to have an acceptance for certain forces or causes and effect and stuff like that, is important as well. But also, it's not just chalking everything up to fate, and understanding that there is a sense of us being able to shift the tides within our own lives. It's not that we don't have any control at all. We do have control, but not as the sense of being able to completely have whatever we want, but it's being able to direct and shift attention and energy in the flow of things as well.
You have, and I would just and because I know I just talked for a half hour, I'm gonna let you talk, but you have control, but you don't.
Yeah.
There is a destiny factor. You have control on specific things, but it's a matter of, but if you follow your destiny, it most likely will fulfill what it is you need to do in this lifetime. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah. It's how you, how you're going to shape it as well.
Sure.
And that's the thing. It's like, it's not, this shit doesn't work for us. We're to work with it, and that's also one of the other, misconceptions of how to go about it as well. So it's like, we're talking about how, the processes we're talking about how these pendulums are forming and coming about and stuff. And it's like, well, then how, what is it that's really going on with the process of it and stuff? Like, how is it? I still don't see, I don't see how maybe it's working, or it's not coming to mind of what actually is in control of this or whatever. And it's like, one way I would describe it is like being able to understand what the universal one is and cosmic consciousness. So as the basic premise is that mind itself is causal. Therefore, matter is a purposeful effect of this vast, omniscient, omnipotent, and omnipresent mind. Materialist will argue that matter is casual and mind is an effect. is demonstrated by the pursuit of materialistic science, searching for a type of exact God particle, so to say. So to know the casual creator is to know the mind of oneself in its stillness and its purity. And the reason is because when we think of time or we think of distance, it isn't actually a thing or a force, it's a measurement. So therefore, the universal one or God or creator is actually a 0 point that is outside of the realm of time and space and is motionless. It's outside of that measurement or that parameter itself. So it's a state of infinite potential, and every possibility of life, motion, and form is within the source of all power and all knowing. And this is the same as the abode of the kingdom of heaven within man. It's the omniscient, omnipresent, omnipotent source of all creation and where all exists. So it's the inner knowing which gives form to thinking, which then gives form to product. So there's a scale of it as well. There's the knowing, which is the prime actuality. That's that stillness, that's the silence, the power, the uncreated, undivided, unconditional, formless, sexless, timeless, white magnetic light, idea, the oneness, love, life, cause, God, whatever you want to call it.
Everything that it hits, everything before it hits your filter as a mind.
Yes. And it's a point that it's like a lot of times it's a point that doesn't have that dual nature to it. And then what comes, so it's the thing before thinking, because then what comes from that is the thinking. And that's the expression of divinity, so to say. It's your expression of power. That's, the action of thinking, it's a light wave, the wave lever, it's electricity, imagination, father, mother, like the vision, the division of idea, the giving and the receiving, life, death, expression, all that as well.
Which is polarity is just by way an illusion. It ends up being unity, but it's the same thing, different spectrum.
Exactly. And what comes to this, and this is a lot of Walter Russell's teachings on all of this, of which we accomplish within ourselves, is the fact of, there's concentration and decentration. So, and I'll get more into that as well afterwards, but that whole part of the expression of thinking and everything then forms the product, which is the effect of divinity. So that's the result. That's the record of action. That's matter. That's motion itself, reflection. It's an unreal image, formed bodies, a projection, repetition, rebirth, effect, all those things. It's the universe itself. Mm-hmm. So if you think about it on the scale of the mind of God, since the mind of God is outside of that, but that mind, that space is within all of us as well, if we are made in the likeness of his image. It's not to say that we are like God or like that we are God or anything and stuff like that. It's the fact that there is a direct connection there, but it needs to be.
It's like taking a cup from the ocean, taking the water out and saying, well, that's not the ocean. Yeah, it is. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
God would be the ocean. I mean, I know a lot of people use this analogy. It's very popular, but like, that's it. Like that water is the ocean water. It's the same thing. Just in a little cup. You're the cup.
Yeah, that's it. And it's that point of which we have to come into and become familiar with, and to start developing and knowing from there, not a knowing of our senses. And this is the thing to practice. This is the actual thing. We talked about Earth and its grids and, having the, the certain polarities and the poles, and with magnetism and everything, it's the same thing that goes for us as well. There's an anode and a cathode, or poles within ourselves, and to all living things, along with an equator, right? Earth has an equator, everything as well too.
Fractal universe, baby.
Exactly.
Fractal universe.
Yeah, exactly. It's the fractal universe, and therefore it has hemispheres. We have hemispheres of the brain as well, and that's the duality that we see in nature.
Right.
This expresses there is a center point or a 0 point where there is no motion or form, and this is the point we want to consciously come to know and recognize within ourselves in all forms, within ourselves and all of the forms in life. Because in this, we will come to know the divinity and the work through that. And with that, instead of us expecting it to work for us once again. And this is the bridge that we've crossed away from in our materialist nature, and that we've come to adapt. It's because we're running off instinct rather than the inner standing. We're not becoming familiar with that point of us. And this is why we may feel like we're so far away from our fulfillments and desires. And this is also where man-made religions and all that have localized God and sense-based multitudinous of these definitions of what God is and everything. But you can't. But that's why I like the representation of saying that in the state of omnipresence and omnipotent omniscience is the magnetic white light.
A good analogy for that is how they made magnetism and energy particles. There's no particles. They don't exist. There's no little virtual balls that fly around. And so what they did with that is they took conceptual ideas and told you it was true and that it was a legit literal thing that there are. Now, I'm not denying that there's forces at work, centrifugal, all like, there's forces at work. Yes. And there's ways to understand, but we take these concepts and we make them literal when yet just understand the concept. So what they did with God is, so when you have the magnetic dielectric universe we live in, and how there really isn't particles, but the idea of a particle is something that exists in its own way, but just not the way they tell you. They did the same thing with God. Just like they localized the particle, they localized God. So that popped into my, but I'm gonna grab another soda. Keep going. You good?
Yeah, I'm good. Sorry, like my throat just got really dry. So like in that state of that, that stillness, there's no opposite in emotion, and it could only be described as like ecstasy. And so there, we have to come to understand and recognize, if you want to put it this way, the creator or the unity consciousness. We have to understand that thinking as being only ecstasy and incapable of anger, wrath, compassion, sorrow, jealousy, or vengeance. And it's like, wait, why would you want to keep from thinking that God is compassion? Because it is because that you're trying to say that God is therefore, not having a sense of love, not having a sense, because he has to have compassion for you in order to allow something. So therefore in this sense, there's no opposite. It's just one. So knowing God's one's principle as love and love alone, one may then understand the natural state of our creator.
Universe.
And
Uno.
Yes, and
Una.
create, and the universe.
Unicycle,
if I say God,
unicorn, one.
Yes. And if I say God or anything and stuff, it's to express a state, not some sort of being, not some sort of, it's to understand the symbol. It's the symbol of that, just more divine, the point of where creation comes from.
Yeah, it's not easy to, like that is a very edgy spot, because you say the word and it's just, and that actually has energy around it. There's its own egregore there. Like there's an energy structure built around the word. And so it's definitely become more of a negative connotation to a lot of, not all people. There's a lot of Jesus people out there, God people, cool. And we're trying to integrate and make it unified. And so the idea of the word God, if that kind of itches you the wrong way, I said it last episode, it's just the idea of saying the source of all things.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
Yeah.
But what was I going with it?
Did I take it out of your head?
No. I got it.
Hmm.
Oh, okay. Um, so like you were saying too, we've come to try and localize God in some sort of space or mountain or garden or anything in such sort some sort of way, and it's a really a lowly attempt to try and personalize such a vast, infinite type of greatness, and only the word omnipresence can really describe it. You know, saying God is everything in motion is also failing to understand that everything in existence is in motions and but a reflection of God's knowing and expressed in waves of thinking and action. So like to, you know, an example would be, and I've said this to you earlier today, right, would be the fact that it's like you have the painting of the Mona Lisa, right? It's such a you know, it's a wonderful painting, all that stuff, and you can examine it to the point of its entire makeup, the expression of it and everything. You could go into the paint itself on a microscopic level, the same thing with the canvas and everything, but you still will not find Leonardo da Vinci, the painter, within the painting itself.
Mm.
You know, the painting is just the creative body of the creative mind. Any creator is not bound to its created form.
Oh,
So,
it
you know,
reflects it.
that's, and this is why we say bring it back to yourself, bring it back to this stillness and this oneness, because another way to think of it too is you can't see your reflection in running water. It's only when the water is still that you could see your own reflection.
Yeah, great analogy. That's very good because you're right, it's true, and that's there's a good example of using something to really get it. And what he's saying too is, if you have all these thoughts racing and all this stuff going on constantly in your mind, how could you even see who you are and what you are and what's going on inside there? You know, so it's a matter of removing what everyone else has put there. See, then start seeing that real reflection. It's turning off the water, and that's a great analogy. And so truly is. And then on top of that, some people, they'll do it or they're afraid to do it because they got a glimpse of that and they don't like what they see. So they
Yeah.
tend to, then that's when you get distractions. That's when you get addictions, because what that person's doing usually is running away from that reflection. And yet the answer to all the problems in that person's life is actually just facing that reflection and then, you know, working with it and then turning that thing that's reflecting back into what it is, the desired outcome of the soul. And on top of that too, I think a lot of the times, and because remember, sticking to the whole pendulum thing real quick is, you know, within that running water, is the running water the people and the things that told you what to be and told you what to think and whatever, and that potentially, yes, that's exactly what it is. And so when you have more noise around you and more people telling you how to think and what to do, and you have a government mandating things, you know, in so many different directions, whatever, that's that running water. But can you find that part of your day where you could turn off the running water and truly see things for how you see them? And first accepting that you have accepted ideas and the reflection might be something you don't want it to be, but that's what you've created up to this point. The key thing to that though is you've created. You think other people created, they assisted it, but it was always you, and it always will be you. So it's going to be your decision making and your agreements that you make to yourself. Don't blame anybody else. Don't blame the government. Don't. It's, yes, these things are conduits. They are a lot of, they have a play in the cause, but it's always you. And that's where they took away your power. Because even if you jump into victim mode and say, well, no, it's because of them and whatever, they might have been a causal point where that thing led to you being what you are, but it was what they didn't tell you, that it's always you. And so then if you realize that and get out of victim mentality, and you tend to start meditating and drop these thoughts and these ideas that the outer screen gave you, then you have the ability to choose it. But even if you play victim, you are actually playing into it, because then you are now playing the victim. That's it. The victim energy goes out, victim energy comes back. You'll be treated like one. You'll see it in the world. You'll find people who match your frequency. And well, how do you know this is true? By experience. That I wouldn't need a book to, like, books in this knowledge are ways so I could tell you and other people, or that we can both grow with it, you know? And then, but at the same time, through experience is where you get the true knowledge and wisdom. I'll say this: through the experience, you get the wisdom, but the foundation is knowledge itself to understand the wisdom. So you need both.
Absolutely. 'Cause that's the thing. It's where and attention flows, energy go. Well, yes. Okay. I don't know why I always feel like I get that backwards
That's a
all
tongue
the
twister, I
time.
guess. No, I guess it's a tongue twister. But
Yeah, no, it's true. It's like there's other things causing the ripples in the water that allow you not to see the reflection of yourself. And you may be the one causing those ripples. You may be the ones throwing the stones in the creek and stuff. It's not necessarily the waterfall that's down in the distance, but it's like, can you develop a way of building a dam and stopping that so that you can have a second to be able to look at that? And like you were saying, a lot of times it's not easy to do, and you may run away from it, shy away from it, especially if you're somebody who's dealt with a lot of pain and trauma and everything in your life and stuff, because it's hard to come into acceptance of certain things, of maybe some of the things we went through and the choices we made, for that simple reason, because you start to understand it was like, wow, I had the choice to make all along. And a lot of times I was kind of like the factor in that outcome of something. Yes, of course, things happen all the time. There's many circumstances that are presented to us in our life, and it's hard not to have a certain perspective on something. But regardless, it's the fact is it's the choice in our perspective that's going to kind of determine where we go from there, what's going to be the effect afterwards. But the actual coming in contact with what I was saying about that omnipresence, omnipotent point as well. Another way, and we're saying about symbolisms and everything, another way to really visualize it and to get this is to to understand it's the fulcrum. You have the equator, you have the hemispheres of the body as well and stuff. And it's that center point. It's that center point where nothing happens. It's the drawing the breath in until you can't no more. And it's that point, that barrier point. That's a great of what that space is. Same thing when you draw your breath outwards, and when you can't do it anymore, that point where it stops. And it's in that stillness, no motion, no vibration or nothing, that we have to become aware of that and mindful of that, and be able to dwell in that part in maybe some of our reflective periods and our meditations as well and stuff. And we can bring things into that as well. We could bring things of our ideas and our intentions into there. Whether it's we want to heal something, or we just want to be overall happy about something, or develop some sort of abundance. But there's a bit more to that as well, and this goes into the whole thing about meditation and prayer, with this understanding of being like, oh, okay, you can't walk around, I'm very, very skeptical that there's people that can sit there and meditate while they're doing jumping jacks. You know what I mean? That's not really coming into a certain stillness as well, and it's not about concentrating. It's not about thinking. It's about, like I was saying before, that decentration of being able to come from allowing it to settle out. And, that's one of the things when it comes to, like I'm saying now, that meditation and prayer, and we're going to see how that doesn't function at all.
Yeah.
Not that it doesn't function at all, how it doesn't, why a lot of times we're like, the shit doesn't work. Yeah. It's not doing that for me. I prayed for it. I believed in it. I thought I felt it. And it's like, I can guarantee that there's the after, the constant thing that you do, and you're not mindful of you doing it. It's not about just being in that moment. You could be in that moment, you could tap into that, but can you carry it out afterwards? Can you develop the real type of connection in that space?
Yep. And watching a lot of Matt McKinley stuff and him talking about the screen and all that stuff. And it's the same thing as pendulums and egregore. So if you're someone who watches Quantum of Conscience, Matt McKinley. He says this whole thing, and I've been trying to email him, by the way, just to like tell him like, hey, dude, these concepts you're speaking of that you figured out on your own without actually knowing any of the occult or anything it's fascinating. It is. It really is fascinating to see someone who has such articulation. He's a Virgo. So to see that is outstanding. But the thing is so we know that all is mind. We know that there is that center point, that black hole of us, that center point that we have where we have eliminated all the outside noise, all the outside things. And by getting into that, that's where you're meditating to get to that point. And so by doing that, you're a clean slate. And so, but what's in the way? And a lot of this stuff, by the way, when I said before, is like, don't play victim. It's like, it's still not your fault that things happen this way. It just happened to be, but we all, by the way, had to deal with it. We all are dealing with it. And so being compassionate to one another to understand, well, how deep is this guy's programming or her programming, or non-binary programming? How deep is that?
I got a little late on that one.
But I had to include everybody. But but how deep is the program? It's like, so we can't blame anybody for that in a sense. It's like, well, some people just, they were more susceptible, and then you had other people who weren't. But so before we say, okay, you already had stated, it's like, so why is prayer and why is meditation really not working properly? And you get a lot of people say, oh, it's just me, it's just my luck, it's whatever. The law of attraction doesn't work for me, this and that. Well, no, we're missing key aspects here, and that's what we're adding on to these talks. And as we go on, we'll refine these talks to make it more clear. But because really, when you start learning it, it's like, I'd like to see somebody else teach it. It's to get other people to understand the concept without it being woo-woo crap, without it being some psychological thing, without it, it's whatever. Everyone's mind is so skeptical, and rightfully so, because of the age we've grown up in. But I'm gonna screen share, and I'm gonna get this out of the way so we can then discover why it is that that prayer and meditation potentially might not work. And so it goes back to originally what we had said, what we're going to really want to focus on here, but then it leads to what Gio's saying is, so why is it not working? Well, let's understand again. And like we had talked about I put this at the top here because I just love the whole, how this is in the Bible, and just, it makes so much sense. What is a pendulum? And before I say it, so when two or more are gathered in my name, I will be in the midst of them. Like as if there's this entity, there's this thing that tends to develop from that. So we know mental energy is tangible and it can't vanish. And so when a group of people begin to think in one direction, their thought waves superimpose one another. And in the ocean of energy, they create invisible but real energy information structures. We call them pendulums. They begin to develop by themselves and make people follow their laws. They start to become influenced, and a lot of them are destructive. And so whether they're alive, whether they're conscious, this could be just a way to make an allegory out of the fact that this is just how it works. So it gets you to listen, it gets you to care. It's like, well, if this thing's alive and it's like wants to feed off my energy, take away my freedom, I'm listening. You have my ears. If if you're entertaining the thought. So the more people, fans, members of any type of group, they'll fuel it with the energy they give. And then the more energy they give, emotion and thought combination, the stronger the pendulum will get and the stronger it will swing. It will swing left and right. The more you have opposing forces just kind of hitting each other, Democrat, Republican, the more that this side does this, it swings, boop, and that other side tends to, and until someone interrupts that, it will keep going. And if it keeps going, it will just get more destructive. So if the number of supporters will decrease on this pendulum, its fluctuations start to subside, meaning the momentum starts to kick, law of rhythm. So if the other side isn't pushing back as hard, it tends to start disappearing and dies naturally. So what these things do is suck the energy from people, and this will come from their feelings and reactions. So we'll name a few here: resentment, dissatisfaction, hatred, frustration, anxiety, agitation, oppression, confusion, despair, fear, regret, and then, oh man, even the positive ones: affection, admiration, tenderness, idealization. So where in your life have you placed any of these emotions, and where do they keep occurring? And then where is it that more than two people, two or more people or bigger groups tend to do this on a bigger level? And so when you notice with these groups of people, they tend to work as a group think. It's like they're one big organism, and that functioning end of the organism is what we would call the pendulum. And so the main danger of these destructive influences is that it diverts the victims, these people that end up getting sucked in, from the lifelines where he or she could be happy, that he or she could get free from the imposed goals of the pendulum itself. It's like it starts because it wants to survive and feed off your energy. It has its own laws, its own things that it wants you to, the Democrats and Republicans really don't care about you. They don't care. It's an illusion, but you are sucked in to the binary construct of this pendulum. And so ironically, with all the stuff I gathered, the term egregore, right, is the same thing, but it actually, by understanding this end of it, of pendulum, it's almost like you're going from multiplication to division. It's like the same thing, but one's maybe a little deeper, or algebra to calculus. It's like the pendulum end is more like a calculus of what an egregore is. And by understanding, say, the pendulum, you're gonna get a little more detail and possibly a little more control. And so in my eyes, I do agree with that, is that you do get a little more insight by understanding this transurfing method. By the way, if you're interested, Vadim Zealand, he's the author of a book, Reality Transurfing. There's plenty of videos, books all over YouTube, Amazon. Look it up. Great self-help. This is where this concept arose from. And I really am just fascinated by it because I see it. So,
yeah. We'll try to cite some of maybe the sources of some of the things we're even talking about.
Sure. Yeah, I went to many sources and gathered all this stuff and put it in my own PDF. So we'll surely put some links and stuff in the description here.
Yeah, but that's the other thing, is that we are in the process of composing and not compromising, putting together,
compiling.
Compiling, that's the word I was looking for, of a lot of this material, including our own as well and stuff, and gathering it and being able to, this way there is a written visual form of it as well, and we will make that available.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we will share where we're getting our sources,
yes.
So we're just not pulling it out of thin air. But I do really want people to, I want people to understand there are parallels here, that there's a bunch of different avenues you could take to understand the same concept. So don't judge someone else because this person's in the law of attraction, and this person prays to Jesus, and this person believes in transurfing, and this person is an occultist who believes in egregores and does magic. It's like, at the end of the day, we're all doing the same thing, just dressed up in different, clothing. It's
the source of the function is all coming from the same thing, whether we realize it or not.
Right. And I think with transurfing, to me, after all the years and years of studying, we're going a decade plus at least, it's like this really is the most clear and concise, to the point, without it being too woo woo. You don't got to summon demons and invoke and evoke and do rituals. It's like, then this kind of tells you, hey, like, you're doing magic every day and you're working with energy every day. So it doesn't really matter what system you use. And that's what it even says in the beginning of this book, that this book itself can be a pendulum. So just be aware, and and they designed it that way. So it can't tend to take you over. And it's fascinating. I'm telling you, worth the read. I'm only going to go a little further here. And if you maybe have anything you want to throw in on this.
Just one thing I want to say, though, it's like, another thing is, like, be patient with your intake as well. I mean, I think that's obviously something we kind of stated that already, but like, being patient with your intake of this information, and that hand in hand with the practicing of it as well. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't have to be some grandiose way of starting to practice it and stuff like that. It's right. Being able to, like we're saying, understand it, have the understanding, being able to start to learn to identify it and work with it as well and stuff, because then it could almost just completely cloud the whole point of this and the whole process of it as well. And yeah, exactly. And like, that's the other thing, is like, also not feeling like, oh my man, there's so much I don't know. There's so much I don't know. That's good. Get comfortable with not knowing. Get comfortable with the fact of that there is a knowing to happen that is not necessarily something always so external. You know what I mean? Like, look, Ray's been in this realm for a lot longer than myself. This is something that it's been overwhelming for me in the past now 2 years or so.
3 years.
Yeah, more. They're coming on 3 years. Wait, yeah, no, yeah, the 3 years. Yeah, exactly. So like, and I never expected this to lead me to this point of time. And I've seen a lot of, restrictions and a lot of shit that's blockages and everything and stuff. And it still happens in that way. But it's the sense of being able to have that patience and understanding that it's going to develop, and there's that acceptance of that as well. So take it as it comes, take it in strides, and any sort of sense of understanding it, you can see where you can begin to start implementing it in all these little areas of your life. And then you can gradually go on to maybe some more things. Once you see the development of it, it'll help you when you start seeing the little developments. It'll help you to be able to develop the certain emotions that you need to, absorb and hold and stuff for certain things when it comes to it, and it'll progress.
And you're going to have dissonance, you're going to want to battle it. You're not going to want to believe it. And it's like, why I find it extremely important that a measure of intelligence is the ability to suspend that and be able to listen without getting your emotions tied up in what you're listening to. Well, this goes against my religion. This goes against science. Tell your ego to shut up, because I had to do that for years. I'm a skeptic. I do not like listening to other people. Well, meaning like I grew up that way. And it was through my own development that it's like I had a barrier up, because I was always told what to think and what to do. So for a while I did become in my ego like, no, I'm not listening to you. I don't need to listen to you. But then I had to go through a humbling stage again towards the later part of my 20s and say, I have to actually start opening up and hearing people. And so I changed that years ago. But you're gonna experience it, and it's a part of the process. But in the end, I tell you that you're gonna have the power and the control to disconnect from these energetic systems. You wonder why you keep getting the results you do, and then you think it's you think it's just your luck, you think it's your astrology, you think it's other other people are born with it and you're not. Well, no, let's not go there yet. It's like, that's given up. It's like, so now we're bringing in this topic, and it's something you could truly look into and start to analyze and take your time. Honestly, it's like, dude, the world's going to shit. Have fun. Like, and not have fun like, well, okay, I'm gonna go booze it up and bang some girls. And then you're a loser. And I'll be honest. Meaning, if that's what you think, that's escape. That's not fun. That's escape. You're if you're running away from yourself, that's being, to me, what I would define as loser, right? Is you're definitely not winning. You're getting a temporary fix and a satisfaction, but yet I think the real winners face themselves and do the shadow work, because then you want that extended bliss. You don't want a hit. You don't want an up and a down. It goes along with your vibration thing. When we talked earlier, you were talking about, let's get rid of the high vibration thing, because a high vibration goes up, it goes down, it goes up, it down, and it's not balanced.
And when we go further into, when I start going more so of like understanding, effective prayer, meditation and stuff, I'll get into what that actually means. And it's, and hearing it at first might be a little triggering and it might go, especially if you're somebody who is a spiritual person and you're used to certain terminology and everything, it might shock you at first. But then once you speculate and see the actuality of it, it comes into more of a acceptable way of really looking at it, and more effective way. But yeah, no, I want you to continue where you were at too.
Yeah. Well, I just thought it was a good time to throw it in. And on top of that, it's like,
absolutely.
Because actually that had to deal with dissonance. And that's why it was good to throw it in there. Cause really it's like, you're going to have dissonance with a lot of things. Just and I'm telling you, like, I'm not trying to tell anybody what to do here. If you don't want to tell me to go fuck myself, I don't really care. And at the end of the day, because if you don't care, it's okay. Then I don't either. But if I didn't care, I would be doing this. But more so, learn and attempt to learn and understand the concept before you jump to, well, oh my God, the words that just came out of his mouth contradicts what I believe. It's just understand the concept.
It's like, an exercise.
Right. It was a great way to put it. So anyway, to just continue with this pendulum definition here. So the pendulums are about understanding thought structures. So our thoughts have an electromagnetic type of reality, even if we don't see those thoughts. I use that analogy with, if you went to the doctor, hey doc, I got depression. Can you open up my head and cut it out? Cuts up, open your head. You ain't finding no thoughts. So we don't see those thoughts, but you see them in your head. So I'm thinking, when I'm thinking these thoughts right now, like this is saying, it's like I have an energetic field. It's a good way to really, I love this concept. Is so you have an energetic field, this motion of energy. It's like thinking yourself as the body is like what we do to the God or the particle. You're isolating it in the one thing, when yet this energetic field is you. So you're not just this body, the singularity point. More so as you're the whole field. And so this field goes around your body, and those are your thoughts and your feelings. And it's like this information that's just enveloped in you, and you are that information. So the pendulums are about understanding the thought structures. So our thoughts have an electromagnetic type of reality as well with these pendulums. Like they have their own as well. And there's momentum factors. So basically, and I gave this example before, is so a pendulum being a thought structure, many people are thinking, well, if you're a Republican or a Democrat, whichever side you're on, if you choose one of them, you are a part of the pendulum. And if something happens in the other one's favor, like say the other one gets elected, if you were a Trump guy or girl or binary, non-binary thing, then, you were affected by this. So we think these thoughts, but we're all connected in that fashion. This pendulum is that web of people. So if they're feeling down and I'm part of the web, now I'm affected by the emotion of the whole pendulum. This thing's feeding off of me and you and all the rest of us. And we said this at the beginning of sports team and other big, the Bucks lost this weekend. My God, there's so much hate and negativity on social media today. And I'm aware of this stuff. And I was like, not part of it. I'm a Bucks fan, but I'm not like, it's just an attribute for something I've agreed with, but it's not me. And so that means that I have no contract to allow this thing to affect my energy and to affect my state of mind. So don't sign these contracts. And by understanding that, well, how do I not sign the contracts? How do I get out of? Well, some of them you have to ride out, but then Geo also has the solution on the other end.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because that whole thing is like a chaotic fucking. It's like a chaotic soup of energy and stuff like that. All that, like what you're saying about the expressing some sort of like animosity or hate or opposition to something. Yes, you may not agree with it. It's not saying that you have to agree with everything, but it's the sense of that you're allowing that energetic cord to be established. And therefore, there's a feeding back and forth from it. And there's constantly some sort of struggle and a pull to gain something back, like not materialistically. I'm not saying in that way, but it's like there's ways that it could be draining you and ways that you can be trying to take from it. It's a constant tug of war. So definitely, that's huge. And yeah. So, I mean, like, so then when it comes down to it, and it's like, okay, effectively being able to go into the state of, of working with that prime actuality, the like prime actuality of matter and motion is a state of equilibrium or rest. Right. So all electric motion, it begins and ends in stillness, silence, and rest. That's the point that the point that we're relaying here. So it's the stillness, magnetic light of mind that is the fulcrum of all electrical motions. There's no vibrations whatsoever to the spirit. The light of the spirit is absolutely motionless, while the vibration of matter increases with density and decreases as they approach the stillness of space. So that's why what you were saying before about the whole misconception that we we do often hear all the time is about, and especially in the spiritual community or anything, is about raising one's vibration. And the notion of raising one's vibrations as some sort of end goal is a misconception, because not always, but often it's a misconception. So when you break down the etymology of the word vibrate, it means to force or to invoke movement. So it is counterintuitive to the principle of achieving stillness when you think about it in that sense. We know in frequencies that higher vibrations means faster movings of peaks and troughs, which when shown in emotions is more chaotic in nature. And it's also the association of fear and anger. So take an earthquake, for example. It's more violent when the seismic waves are moving more rapidly with more frequent ups and downs, and therefore causing more destruction. So it's also seen in radioactive elements. It's the emission of ultraviolet rays, and also when we spike a fever. And think about that. What's the ultimate goal, though, of spiking a fever? So when we spike a fever, though, we're coming from a state of our body's natural equilibrium, so to say, to the point of where everything within us is vibrating more frequently, and it's having more of an impact. Therefore, it's creating the temperature rising in us as well. And why is it doing that? It's doing that in order to, say, it's our body's natural function in order to fight off some sort of virus or something as well. And in doing so, that will eventually bring us back to an equilibrium state. So it's understanding really that state of which we're talking about. So actually, when in actuality, it's almost like we want to lower our vibration to a more equilibrium state, such as silence, in order to tune into the still nature of that omnipresence, omnipotent, and omniscience. This equates to more mindfulness, or more knowing, and less physical sensing, and allows the activation of one's true spirit to come into observation. So through all this, your thinking then underlies the production of material forms created by inspiration, like I was saying before, and it gives peace in your life and daily activities with more practice over time. There's a reduction in stress. There's better job performance, relationships, health, and healing, as well as many other useful physical expressions inspired by your desires within stillness of the eternal, formless, and timeless nature. This is what is considered to be that communion with God, and speaking through the language of light in the stillness of the heart, and the total relaxation from all mental and physical strains. So all those physical and mental strains is really what is stopping your thinking. It's to stop your thinking and knowing more so of the ecstasy of the creator. And like, don't get all crazy starting to think it's like you're popping an e-pill or something and that's it. But there's something that you could equate with that, but whatever, I'm not going to go there. But it's through that direct communion that it insulates the body and the mind from any and all ailments too, of the body, or anything that's other outside sources. So meditation, meditation takes you from the world of sensing to the world of knowing, and it leads to the state known as waking meditation. So that's where it's really the effective, pure intention setting can be accomplished there. And that's that decentration, the opposite of concentration. Concentration is obviously best thought as fast, tight, light waves of thought, a large amount of mental focus in one place, and it's required for commanding precision, commanding it through techniques utilized by the raised vibrational brain or body for intense physical
beta
demands.
waves.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. It fulfills its purpose when needed, but it's not needed, and it can become counterproductive in meditation and in prayer.
Yeah. And to make it an end goal is what your point is.
Yes.
Everyone's like, I got to raise my vibration.
Yeah. No, it's the decentration. It's the decentration that it's the rest in order to begin again. And it parts, and it's part of the cyclical nature of the heartbeat and breathing. And like I was saying before, and it's the underlying in all of creation. It's like understanding that barrier limit point. And when we come into that understanding of it and are able to dwell in that part of it, that's when we start to unfold, the understanding of our own purpose. And then it'll start to give us power to express the knowledge gained in the light of mind to all those around us too. And this develops a cultural uplifting and a sustainability of balance and harmony in all our physical lives. And that there'll be a knowing that you emanate through creative expression rather than repetition as well. So this is just a start of understanding even just the whole process of meditation and where we possibly, may go wrong as well.
Yep. So by having the foundational understandings of these things, it gives you a head start. It gives you the realization that by being still, goes back to that reflection concept. And so you could see the reflection. And the first thing is to know yourself. It's all about you, it's okay to be selfish. And this is, the more we continue down this road that society's taking, it tends to be looking like they're trying to tell you it's not about you, it's about the whole, which is true, but they're using knowledge, they're using it against us in a way. And we know, okay. But it is being used against us because yet to be selfish, truly to understand yourself and to take the time to meditate and drop the thoughts of those programmed by you and understanding what was you and what wasn't and why, and what's your intentions? Why do you do things? When you think thoughts, when certain thoughts arise, why are you thinking those thoughts? Is it really how you feel, or is it something that's caused that? What put it there? And if you are lost in definitions and you're that rigid, to me, that is the sign of a dead soul. You might be alive, but you're the walking dead, because now you're no longer growing. You're no longer imagining things. You're not using your imagination anymore. You've shut down a whole faculty of the brain. If you go, well, this is this and this is that. My life is this. I'm defined. This is just what it is. It's a dead soul to me, because by doing that, I could tell you right now, you're not using your imagination to its full potential. And this is something that keeps a human being healthy and being tapped into that. So if you are overly logical, overly pessimistic, just stuck in your ways, you're rigid, meditation and prayer, doing them properly, is going to completely unlock the door and allow you to break those rigid barriers. And then by doing that, you free yourself of these things we call pendulums. And that means that you're going to have more energy. You're going to have more control of your life. That so-called bad luck you claim to have, well, it wasn't, you thought it was you, but it was actually outside influences. But it was those things that you made contracts with. Is those things you decided that, okay, I'm making an agreement. And I mean, I don't know that I'm making this agreement, but I am. And this was the Ponzi scheme. This was the scam that they ran on all of us. And so by taking your sovereignty back, don't worry yet about your social security and all capital letters and straw man and all that. It's not about that. As within, so without, right? So to free yourself spiritually will reflect in the mirror of life, because that is how it works. How do you know that, Ray? Experience, patterns, things I've seen, things Gio has seen, and from the truth community itself. Yeah. Go watch the Gematria Effect for an hour, and disregard his aggressiveness, but
his righteousness
a little bit. I'm not saying you gotta. It's not about him. He does great work, by the way, when it comes to if you just eliminate this little layer of aspects that he tends to have. And it's whatever. I get why he is the way he is. I don't judge anybody. But synchronicity is all over that. There's just no way these things happen. And there's no mechanism. And so people are going to call these things woo-woo science. Oh, you're forcing it. Oh, you're a conspiracy theorist. Oh, you think too much. No. I'm going to say that sternly. That no, I don't think too much. Gio doesn't think too much. People who think, people who don't think people who think too much.
Yeah. It's like having a Tesla that's not, it's not calibrated and programmed the right way. And you're just kind of half-assing the autopilot, not really going to, it might get you to where you need to go, but it might be a fucking bumpy road. You know what I mean? Like it's same thing, not calibrating the GPS. We've said this before, using the GPS analogy with even astrology as well. If we're constantly sitting there and coming into the understanding of planets and almost like and the celestial activity as being some sort of thing that's overall determining and ruling, our whole consciousness, like our whole, what's going to happen to us all the time. It's not necessarily that. It's the fact that that's the type of thing that we're taking in and putting out. as well. It's the thing that we're allowing, and we're bringing the cosmic consciousness of it into our mind and into thought form and into this sort of way of manifesting into material and everything, and we're attracting it in that way as well. So it's like, that's why it's the importance of understanding, or more so of understanding the fact of what it is that we are, faced with, that's interference in some sort of way. How are we interfering in our own way? And especially with this whole concept of the pendulums, of the egregores as well, because then it becomes more, if we're mindful of it, it becomes more noticeable. In just things that we do.
Mm-hmm.
It's not to say that we have to sit there and point everything out and be like, yeah, it's an egregore, no, it's just the simple knowing of being like, oh, okay,
It's
I'm
being an
gonna
adult
check
about
my
it,
energy,
right? Being an
Mhm.
adult about it.
Yeah, plain and
Not being a
simple.
hypochondriac, not trying to force it, not overdo it. These things, wisdom is the ability to know when to say or do something. So there's a wisdom is probably more important than the knowledge itself. And I'm sure you can just gain wisdom. There's people out there that don't need to read a book. They are wise at heart. And so they're fortunate. Just like somebody could just pick up an instrument. Somebody could just be an actor. Like, there's gifts, and there's people out there that are blessed with wisdom. They might not know how to relate it or recite it to somebody else. And maybe they don't need to, but those people have it. And those people usually probably have the best lives. And I'm not saying best lives with wealth or money, or no, that's because that's all artificial, but more so just the best quality of lives, because they're happy. And wisdom, by having wisdom, you're going to be happy because you have an understanding of things, and then you also know when to apply that knowledge. And so by here we are at the beginning, steps to gaining that knowledge and turning it and transmuting it into wisdom and taking our power back. This invisible war we have going on isn't just with the V or C, but it's also with it's a spiritual one of us versus them, as in our own reflection, that our opponent is actually reflecting us back to us. And so it's actually about us, but not saying it's our fault that we weren't given the correct perspective and knowledge to do this. And now it's starting to surface. Why do you think they called the past, I don't know how many, 1,000 years, 2,000, the Dark Ages? Because we forgot what we are, who we are, and what we do. And we are conscious creators. And once you become conscious and aware of the things bubbling underneath the subconscious mind, the things that somebody else put there, and you remove that, you start to realize how much power you really have. You start to realize that you are a creator. And how do you know this? Patterns, experiences, and I'm a skeptical person. So, and if you don't trust me, it's be a Uncle Ken right now. I mean, it's not an opinion, it's a fact.
Well, let's think about this too. Like, the fact of, like, as far as like even like esoteric knowledge and stuff, and the way we see it circulating, whether appropriately and maturely or not, the fact that it's even there and present for us, and it's becoming so open, and we know, like, I know me and both Ray can say that it's brought, with the certain appropriate understandings of things, it's brought a lot of more peace and liberation for ourselves within our own life.
Yeah.
Now, don't you think it's almost like an obligation? It's an obligation to come to an understanding of knowing this and to carry it. And that goes with the expression of being able to manifest correctly as well too. Is because this is something that needs to be maturely kept and preserved as well, and brought forth to future generations, especially with knowing if we're knowing that there's a strong force already present, and a strong conscious body, if you want to put it that way, that is pulling us away from this type of understanding, and pulling us away from the power of ourselves. You know what I mean? Like, so it's like we are almost obligated to preserve this, but to also really break it down as well, so that it's not corrupted by any sort of fads or new age movement as well, and misused properly. Then it gets then it ends up getting, demonized, which we know it has already. And then, also being, it's all a bunch of crock, it's this or whatever and stuff, and getting overlooked again, because it's happened before. It's happened before of these types of knowings and teachings that they've faded so heavily. And here we are. This is why we are in the state that we are in. But luckily that's why it's also to not keep it to yourself. A lot of the times it is to develop community around it, because let's not forget, in the ancient times and the ancient mystics and everything and stuff, they still found a way, whether it was preserved in sort of sense of secrecy or being hidden, hence why it's called the occult. There was a form of expression of it, not just within themselves. There was a passing of it and a teaching of it as well, in order to preserve it for future generations as well. And I think that it'll help with understanding, even if you want to look at the end times as well. Not to say that it's like this apocalyptic nature, that it's like that we no longer will exist or anything. It's the sense that it's like there's going to come a point that it's like, what is going to keep us standing in our ground and going to keep us afloat. Yeah. And what's gonna do that, especially if a lot of what we rely on was to be obsolete or taken from us, or we had to adapt to new ways as well. Are we going to be able to function? I know. Are we going to be able to go without being chaotic about something and panicking as well? At this, I feel like is the prime and really the more necessary thing to keep you grounded in that sort of way. And it's not the material itself. It's not the occult. It's not all these symbols and what you see of pentagrams and Baphomet and all this stuff. It's the principle of it and the workings of it within yourself. Mm-hmm. That's the thing. And to share that, but don't go sharing it if you're not using it or equipping it yourself to just kind of be a certain way. Like, I know that's a big importance for us as well. It's just to really try to hone in on it. And the reason why we talk about it in the same sense, maybe, and we may refine a lot of the things that we are saying and what we're discovering about it, because that's exactly it, is that you're seeing the viewer, you're seeing us as well, learning in real time and observing in real time and speculating in real time and doing the work in real time in order to further give you more perspective as well on it, rather than just the teachings itself. So a lot of this stuff, it's like, don't just, take it
anything
for granted.
Could be an egregore, anything could be a pendulum. So anything that is you're too sold on, too dedicated to, it's good to be passionate. It's good to love something. It's good to whatever. Just make sure you don't become the thing. The trap here, in my opinion, all right, is the attachment to this place, the attachment to ideas, the overinvestment of emotion in here. It's good to be passionate, but you got to remember it's a game. Take the seriousness out of it. Drop the importance. They got you convinced it's so important to get college degree. You better get through this system. You're going to be a bum living on the street. They make it so they scare the shit out of all of us and say that you better do how we set this up, or you will die. You will suffer. And so, of course, no human being wants to suffer. And this is technically, to me, a ticket out. It's becoming aware. It's becoming aware you have the power, and to not fear this system that we live in, and get ready for change and to embrace it. Has anything else really worked? And if it has, congratulations. You're probably not watching this, or maybe you are. Yeah. Maybe you are. But because I guess this would rank in the self-help, but not really to us. See, we're fascinated by this. I'm fascinated by the works of the universe. I'm fascinated to see, because I'll say it for the 100th time, that I'm so pattern oriented that I'm like, that thing keeps repeating over there. Something's going on. And I want to know. My Gemini ass wants to know. And I can't stop thinking about it because I keep seeing it. And I don't think it's my RAS. I don't think it's my scanning system that, I bought this car and now I see that car everywhere. And because of that, it's whatever. It's like, It's not all these spiritual things.
But see, there's the why. There's the why too, as well. I mean, if you're fascinated and interested, yes, genuinely and stuff, but think about the type of things that it brings up within you as well. Like those are the things that you are able to continue that fractaling pattern of this sort of eminence of the universal mind as well. It's something that you're also being able to take in and harness and create this eternalness as well. That's what, that's an important thing to understand about idea. Think of idea as like an acronym of being internally derived extended action. So it's the development of something you're taking from this primal, this primal primordial source as well, and able to sculpt it and put it on a pedestal, not a pedestal. I want to use that. Put it on some sort of platform. Mm-hmm. And from that, you are going to derive some sort of progression of something as well, which forms into matter, forms into a material sense, one way or another. It's not to say that, I'm going to have the idea of developing a friggin' Kit Kat or something like that, and then poof, I'm going to make a Kit Kat appear. It's the fact of being like, a Kit Kat, I'm going to make a Kit Kat, like, and it's the idea of the Kit Kat, but you're developing the form of being like, well, you know what that means? I have to go and I have to have money. I have to get in my car. I have to go drive. I have to go to the store, go get, or I can try to find a recipe and I could sit there and I could develop and make one, whatever, something that sort of sense.
Will you choose convenience or creativity? Will you choose things done for you or freedom? If someone else is doing something for you, you are not free, because then when that person can take that away from you at any time.
Yes. And this goes hand in hand with the whole thing, because, I said about meditation, but now it's about prayer. And, prayer is also a really powerful, a powerful thing as well, if understood correctly, though, and rightly used and accompanied by actions as well. So like many people say that, I prayed and stuff, but they weren't answered. And that's due to a lack of understanding the process. For example, you can't pray and ask God for peace and happiness and prosperity to be given to you if you are taking away peace, happiness, and prosperity away from your neighbors and anyone else, for that matter, in any way known or unknown to you or others. So whether it's you gossiping or misrepresenting somebody, or some sort of unequal, unbalanced interchanges, one must balance the desire for peace by giving peace or happiness, by giving prosperity. That's the thing. It's like that we have to be cautious of, is that the prayers don't amount to just wishful thinking, such as praying for like materialistic outcomes, like money or success in some endeavor. Wishful thinking will not help you achieve becoming a great artist or musician. So it's the hard work through right action, practice, and the development of techniques. Those are the things that, however, will, with your mind centered in the universal development of techniques, of the oneness,
right,
and as one. So you're unfolding, your desires into a formed body, and it's achieved by knowing this process of creation. You're knowing it for more so of the grander self and aspect of it is. Not that you have to find where, God, it's, what the hell is God? Like, what is all this stuff? It's kind of contradictory. What the hell is God? But it's like, it's being able to come closer to that understanding of how that works in all parts of nature. We can say it over and over and over again. That's the desired formed body, that it must be achieved. Either it's working or yours from, it has to come from some sort of coherence with the mind of God. So if you're having some sort of thing that you desire, that desire has to have some sort of coherence with the mind of God, God's causal effect, on like the same way that the whole holographic, fractal, optical, electrical, temporal fucking universe of creation works. There has to be some sort of bringing a form of unity, harmony, or stillness one way or another. So it's like, that's the whole thing. It's like, well, I want to start a business, it's like, well, okay, think about why you want to start that business. What are your intentions behind starting that business? Is it purely just for the form of something more materialistic, or are you providing some sort of service or an open network of community, or bringing people together and stuff as well? Sure, there's many people that start a business, and what we don't realize is that, like, you may look at something like, okay, Facebook. It's like, yeah, and a lot of people are against Facebook or metaverse, whatever you want to call it now, meta fucking dick, whatever it is. But yes, has it had its downfalls? Has it done some real sketchy things as well? And maybe the people up top and Zuckerberg and control, yeah, they may be doing some weird, creepy, dark shit and stuff as well. But in the same sense, it has brought a unity. It has brought people together. And this is why maybe if Mark Zuckerberg had prayed or, sacrificed or did some sort of ritual or whatever and stuff, it came forth because there was an intention.
Mixing adrenochrome with his barbecue sauce.
Exactly.
Zuckerberg.
Yeah, I saw that. That was really weird.
I know. You ever see the video?
You know what? I saw bits and pieces of it, and I was just like, I didn't know when I first saw it. I was like, what? I was like, I thought it was fake at first, that video.
So now, by understanding this meditational factor, we just know, because dropping these ideals and dropping all of the concepts that aren't truly resonating with ourselves, I stress the fact that, like, to anybody, including myself, is in whatever way is most stimulating, most helpful, which makes you, it morphs you in a certain way. It's going to be important to, that's why it's important to discover who you are and how it is you would like to put it. So anything we teach, anything a religion teaches, any type of teaching is like, from down to, like, I'm an audio engineer. It's like certain guys put things a certain way, and I'm like, okay, I understand how he said it, but I kind of reevaluate the way that they say it and then turn it into what I'm trying to say. And then like what I'm trying to put it at, what's going to be the most efficient way I could understand this thing. And by doing that, then there you go, it'll integrate because you've done it in your most unique way. And I think all humans are alike in that fashion, where you want to create, you're learning a concept. It's like you want to be the creator of that concept, because then if not, if you're just following this guy, this Joe Schmo, and he tells you to think this certain way, there's just certain people out there that's going to get more stimulation actually from developing their own way of seeing it. So when it comes down to it, meditation and prayer and all of that stuff, they're just symbols to understand a functionality of getting to a certain point and understanding something completely. So that's where it becomes fun. It's like, so how could you dress this stuff up to make it where you understand it the most, where maybe you could teach it to somebody else, because the best way to learn, by the way, is to teach it to somebody else. And so then in that case, by having these things set in motion, then you could start to fully change your life and fully disconnect from the so-called pendulums or just culture that other people have created. And then that's where the true liberation begins. And that's why it always relates back to meditation. Meditation is the liberation from the thoughts already implanted. And so then that leads to prayer.
Yeah. And it's why, and in order to achieve, in order to achieve this sort of thing, it's like also being able to, ask those questions why to yourself. Why is, what is my, what or why is my intention, and what is it, what's coming from it? What am I looking to bring with it? It doesn't always have to be something on a bigger scale or anything, or something that's going to have to be outward. It can be inward as well and stuff. So, the thing that maybe say you're praying for, so the prayer, it'll come into existence with the intention of it bringing a form of unity, of harmony, or stillness, and it's bringing the intention into the prime actuality of the universal God mind, which helps one attain their desires in objective form. So inspiration, it's bringing inspiration, and inspiration is a gift that is received and given. And every inspiring thought which comes to us is a partial illumination when you really come to think of it. So what you are imagining in that inspiration or emotion is the idea or thought that you need to hold on to and revisit it and meditate on it more and more until you will then know how to take that idea apart bit by bit. Then through technique, that's when you begin to be able to put it back together in the building of your simulation of thought, which we call a body being. And that body being is then in motion. It's there where we can see how the motion of the thinking is materialized, and it's on its way to forming into a product. That's why I said that whole thing of like the process, that whole for the process by which the universal mind and all subsequent mid extensions build the universe of bodies in motion is the idea. It's the idea and the intention behind it. It's the internally derived extended action of it. It's something that can't be sensed by your human body brain. It must be conceived within the mind. Stop thinking, decentrate. Your mind is all knowing to the degree of your own illumined ability to conceive. So through inspiration, there is no limit to the depths of imagination and endless potential of human creativity. All knowledge exists already. We've gone on this before in all other episodes, in more older episodes too. It can be ours for the asking, not for the taking. It can be ours for the asking, because the eye of the heart, or the pineal gland, is the third eye. This is your imagination lens, and that's what peers into the universal mind. And think about that too as well in anatomy as well. I was saying it to you earlier, right? But I'll reiterate it again, is that, when we think about the pineal gland, this is why there's so much of it in correlation as being the third eye, because the pineal gland itself is like the control center for all the rest of the endocrine system and all the other, other glands that it sends messages to by secreting hormones and everything, that it tells the gland, whether it's your thalamus or whether it's a different gland, that it tells that gland to do something, which then tells the organ in that part of the body to do something as well. So it's like the overall seer of it. So like it's that imagination lens that peers into the one universal mind. You then are conceiving your idea in its nebulous, in that nebulous state, or the embryonic concept. And then inspiration is the umbilical cord to the universal mind to be in spirit or inspired. And this is the language of light, which we all have the access to the degree of their respective desires, though. So when the ideal is ready to be born, you have to take it apart and prepare the altar for it to exist. So like an example is gathering the needed materials for construction of your concept, whether it's the blank canvas, the blank paper, the guitar, piano, the pile of clay. Mind is necessary for the construction of any and all matter. So through your developed and practiced techniques, you're then able to reconstruct the concept into the material form, dividing the stillness and silence of the equilibrium of the white magnetic light of the mind to bring out your inner conception through outward thinking. So that's where all this is really happening. It's not just simply asking for it. It's the fact of being able to, that's the thing. Even the desired thing within prayer is to meditate on what it is you're asking, why you're asking it, not just the simple fact of you just desiring it. That's and you're able to break down the concepts of what it is that is to come from the thing that you want to come into form. So I mean, I'll leave it at that for now and stuff. But there's so much more to that you can see, that it's like how it eventually, these little steps, these little techniques eventually are the completed body that stands before you of what it is that you desire. But it's coming into a balanced sense of the thing that you desire is, rooted in some sort of, once again, unity, some sort of harmony, some sort of thing that's going to present itself, even if it's just unity within yourself and your own thinking, your own peace as well.
Step one.
Yeah,
Or step
exactly.
two.
I think take the baby steps though.
Yeah. Don't be hard on yourself. Take baby steps. And I mean, step one would be deprogramming and disconnecting from the things that aren't you. And then, you know, decentralizing from that, and then reunionizing into yourself. First, you have to get rid of what's not you. You know, so bringing up the beginning part of this talk is the pendulum factors. All that's really saying on a simple level is there's other things that are feeding off of you that probably aren't yours. You didn't decide them. They happen to just slip into your mind, and you think it's you. You think that's how it is. You think that's how it works. And yet these other ideas or ideals and belief systems and ways to see the world and ways to see things were put there. And then it became natural and it got embedded in the subconscious. And you know, those neural networks were engraved. There's grooves just deep within. And so a matter of like getting rid of those would be step one. Or at least here, I'll break it down simply. Step one is realizing they're there. Step two is the process of disconnecting and getting rid of them. And then step three would be creating union once more with yourself, and then redefining you and what you are. So down to the, you know, the name that you have, the story you tell yourself, it all ties in to the egregore pendulum concept. Is that so this story that you have, is it actually feeding off your spirit, the energy that you have of as John Doe, or, you know, whatever? It doesn't matter. Whatever that story you're telling yourself through even the name or what you associate with and all of that, is that really, are you gaining something, or is it gaining something from you? And so by doing that and reaching that step three, and then getting into the state of union with yourself, and then step four comes in, where you start to create the life you desire. And then, you know, and that's going to come from, you know, the meditation process it basically is in every step. And then through the last step would be you're meditating, but you're praying because you're meditating on the thing you're asking for. First things first is you got to meditate on the fact of becoming real, of realizing what's there, what's in the mucky, dirty water that you can't see because you keep moving it around and you can't seem to stop it. You know, the only way to you know, by splashing water around only makes it more chaotic. That's why I love that analogy. So the only way to see through it is then to let it simmer and silence and settle down. And so then when you do that, you could see what's in the water, and then you can begin to clean it out, clear it out. And then you could refill it with what we call God, or what we call the higher self, or what we call the real self, your divine connection to nature and life as it is, and not as someone told you what it is. So you will only gain your control back, your power back, through this process of death and rebirth. And this is what being a reborn Christian, what's the thing? You're, you know, born again Christian, right? Really, at the end of the day, what they're trying to achieve through, say, in their eyes, Jesus Christ, is they're using that conceptual thing. And I'm not arguing what's real or what's not, or what's true or what's not. I'm saying they're using that in the correct way. If they use it in the way it was intended to be, that being born again is the death of the old self, death of what was not in their self, and then being born again through God, through spirit, through the connection to the divine. And all that really is, without dialing it up and making it all crystally and shiny and all that, is just, you're just getting to know yourself and truly deciding what type of life you want, opposed to the things that this pendulum wants, or what society wants, government, whatever. Get rid of that. Be who you are. Love who you are. Know who you are. Not your name, not the symbols, not the things that, you know, are artificial and of this world, but in that black hole within yourself. And then so without doing this process, I assure you, maybe you get lucky, you write out certain things, you play the game, and you know, you tend to maybe win, but when you go up, it must come down. And so that's why being in that strictly balanced state is, since you're not going up and you found that, like, just you're soaring in bliss, you're on that line, and there's no up, down, no high vibration, no this and that. It's just straight line. You are who you are. You figured it out, and you ride and if there are waves, of course, because that's life, and we deal with other people and other energies. It's just cycles are cycles. Like, it's just how it is. But
and that's no, I'm sorry.
No, I was going to say, the last thing I was going to say was, it's just getting on that frequency is the end goal. And by doing that, I assure happiness in all of us. And then we can commune and be real neighbors to one another, real brothers and sisters, and non-binaries to one another.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Because that's the whole point of it, is that being able to become familiar with that equilibrium state as well. And we were saying this before about that whole thing with the stillness as well. And, the whole misconception with, raising your vibration and higher vibrations up and downs. It's not actually, stillness and stuff. It's like, to become familiar with that state allows you to become effective within that state, which allows you to bring those intentions into that state. It allows you to divide afterwards, be able to divide the stillness and the silence and the equilibrium, and to bring out your inner conception through outward thinking as well. So it's like the same thing of being able to have the inspiration of the thought, and then being able to divide that into the first, brushstroke, the first sentence, the first chord, whatever it may be, and then followed by the next and next and next and so on and stuff. But it's, understanding to take that first step as well comes from the whole thing of, in that you develop a familiarity with that knowing of the infinite potential. And therefore, if you come to a knowing of the potential that you want to achieve, then that's like that frequency. It has a frequency of its own. And you being in the stillness, you then can channel that inward and to get on that frequency. We were saying it before about the whole thing. It's like, why are sonar radars able to pick up things that we can't? Like, you're far, far away, say 17 miles away from somebody banging a hammer, you're not going to hear it. The same thing with, like, the military and their radars, how they have sonar technology, and what it does in order to, spot an enemy plane or a submarine or something like that, is because when the sound moves out in waves, it may be a higher vibrating wave and stuff, but eventually dissipates out over time. What it does is it takes that back in and condense it by sending out its own waves, in order to condense the waves that are coming out from the original point and bring it back down into, generating it again so that it can develop. It's the same thing that's happening for us within our minds, and being able to come into something that we desire, and something, and same thing goes now, if that works that way, same thing goes for if you're trying to get off of something as well. You have to also change your overall way of thinking. You have to release certain types of energetic cords. That's the whole thing, and learn how to replace them, because you can't just completely get rid of certain things. You got to replace certain things and replenish yourself as well. So, it's eventually, that's where you get, the whole thing of needing to, refine certain things as well. It's part of the process, and once again, your inspired creation will uplift not only you, but then when you properly express it, it'll uplift your fellow man to the degree of whatever inspiration they may feel. And then the reward is deposited back in your bank.
Right. And to remember, it's like, well, why should I care about my fellow man? Because we are one organism. Humanity is one. And so that's true unity. And that's true. And it's not mm-hmm. That's not like airy fairy, I'm trying to be cute. It's the truth. Mm-hmm. So, and your body, trillions of cells, they work as one unit. That's the body, and humanity itself is a body. It's a body of souls and a body of beings. And so getting down to that, discover who you are, mm-hmm. but work be a cog in the, in the divine engine or machine, opposed to the man-made artificial system. And it's happening. It's going to happen regardless. What side will you choose? And the cosmic clocks say so. I invest a lot in the cosmic clocks because I just know, I have an inner tuning fork, and no one has to believe that. This channel preaches all the time. If we ever even sound like we're coming off like we do, that I said this last time, I'll say it again. If I want you to listen, or if I want you to consider, I have to be stern and I have to be confident. And I am confident in what I say. I know Gio's confident, and it's going to take more refining and simplifying for a lot of people, and because they operate on frequencies. But I do know in this cosmic clock it is striking 12, and we are entering the new day. And that new day is a new dawning and a new understanding of life itself. And we're realizing that because Aquarius rules the ether, is that now we are understanding the ether and how it works, how a collective mind works. What the hell is a 100th monkey effect? How the hell does that work? Well, because information travels through this Wi-Fi we call the ether. And so we are all connected. You cannot escape it. You could try all you want. You are connected to your brothers and sisters. And so by bettering your life and by raising your frequency, and being who you are, is bettering the lives of the fellow human beings you share it with. So.
Yeah, it's an addition to the cyclical process of all of nature and stuff. And then you got to also be aware of the fact of, talking about inspiration as well in creative expression. You have to be wary of creation de-inspiring others, and therefore that becomes a perpetual process that comes right back to you as well and stuff. And it's like the forces that we find ourselves like up against all the time, like those darker forces and the things that are going on in the world, they use the same exact formula. They use the same exact thing in their attempts to create chaos on this earth. It comes down to just a struggle between creators of light and the perpetuators of darkness. And it's up to us to choose which one we want to be a part of. The one that helps your fellow man toward the light and ensures liberty and freedom as a whole through the process of self-actualization, or the other way, which serves the agenda of dehumanization toward a culture of death and world domination based on sense gratification and willful ignorance of the light with ourselves. So it's like, this is where you ask yourself, in what I do, in all things that I do, and how I feel, think, breathe, whatever it may be, pray, meditate, what do I truly contribute to humanity through my thought constructs, which become my creations? That's why they say it's like, hey, what you think, what you do, sometimes even what you think may not affect others, it has more power than you think. It's the powers of words, power of symbolism, all that as well. So choose wisely.
Well said.
Thank you.
Yeah, fantastic. And so we do know this, and we're going to end it here, but we will continue this, and we will go into other occult matters, go into other things that we can really break down. And truly, as we are learning and understanding this, we are delivering it to you guys. And so even when you guys have ideas or certain things, we say this all the time, like tell us, email us, comment section, let us know. And give us your takes on things. We're not going to be ass hurt over anything, because we're humble enough to know that we know nothing, that we are just students, and we try to be teachers in the same time, because maybe we deliver something to the next guy who tells us something that was actually, it leads to the truth. That's why I can't stand anyone who smites someone. You're a flat earther. You're a, gematria. You're religious. You don't know what that path is taking to. Life's weird like that, man. A person could look like they're on the wrong path, and all of a sudden, all of a sudden it clicks and it leads them to the truth. So never prevent anybody, unless they're going to hurt themselves, hurt other people. They're doing something real toxic. Obviously, there's a discernment there, but more so is, instead of judging others for what they're practicing or what they're trying to understand and learn, have discernment is my point. Like, of course, there's probably instances where you should speak up, and sometimes you should shut up. And we feel the same way. There's times where we feel that way. So it's just keep that in mind, and we're all learning together. This whole unity thing really is growing on me, and it's like we are one big family. And if we don't accept that and help each other, well, we live in the same house, and there's nothing we could do about it. Nothing. We are in the same place. We share the same space. There's nothing you could do about it. You could try to eliminate your other brothers and sisters. You could try and hide. It's just not going to work. So what side are you going to choose? Are you going to segregate and be for self? And in my eyes, I know the light always wins. So look at every story told and look at history. It always triumphs. You know, I think we're in an elongated period where the dark has ruled, and most people probably have forgotten that the light always wins, but it does. And so, what side will you choose? And when I say that the side of light is actually choosing the life you want, because the universe know you came into this life knowing what you want, and it's a matter of eliminating the ideas and things that people told you that you are. Get rid of that shit and be who you are. Just don't be selfish. Don't be an asshole.
Yeah, exactly.
And make sure that you do things for the whole, because let's just keep this in mind. So we believe in heaven and hell and all that stuff, a lot of us, and whatever. Let's just say you come back. So if you don't help fix the world now and make it a better place, you might have to come back and deal with the shit that you left anyway. What if that's how it works? I'm just saying, what if?
Yeah. And what there's some sort of remnants to deal with and stuff. So it's like, it's definitely, and like, don't sleep also on the fact of like, of talking with other people, this whole community aspect of it as well. Like, if what we're saying, you know, is true, if it is the fact of these egregores that we see, that maybe we are seeing them more so as a negative thing, and then they could be more obviously something that pulls us away from our divinity within ourselves and getting acquainted with the true self, then it's going to take that type of unity, that type of conversing and communicating with one another. So I mean, I'm going to put it out right here right now, especially after this, you know, after these few talks that we've done, like, even for ourselves, anybody who's listening to this, highly advise you to, like, you know, not just for us, but for you as well. You know, we want to create that space as well for others to not worry about ridicule or feeling ridiculous about something, allowing themselves to also express themselves. Maybe you guys have questions that we need to gain perspective on, and that we need to be able to dive deeper into, and then we can be able to relay it back to you. That's how this is going to happen. It's the exchange. So, I mean, I think, yes, of course we could do it in the comment section, but if we want more of a more, I guess you could say, protective area and stuff like that. I mean, one, you know, there is our Facebook group page, the Transcendence Forum on Facebook. If you want to join us there, and we can always open up topic of discussion there. And like, if we build up that type of you know, community and networking and outreach with each other and stuff, we'll move it to something, you know, whether it's, you know, some sort of like Telegram or Discord or something, and be able to have more of these open discussions without any sort of
judgment-free zone.
Yeah, exactly. Being free of all that, like we want to. And especially the fact that sometimes, you know, I've had it before. We've had people that have reached out to us that are dealing with maybe some sort of mental, you know, some mental issues and mental problems, or feeling like that sort of way and stuff. And I know, and Ray knows, we've both been through so many things. It's not saying that we're going to give you the answers or tell you something, but like, to converse about it may lead you in the process to being able to heal these things. It's not the answer that we're going to give you. It's the answer that you're going to find within yourself. And by being able to understand that you have a support system, you have group, you have the mentality for it. If you're here listening to this already right now, then it just goes to show that you have that desire within you. So let's exercise it. Same goes for us. So we'll do our part to be able to create that more as well, especially if we see people coming along with that, and being able to further this type of community aspect, and being able to examine ourselves as well, and examine the mind and all these different types of concepts, and be able to speculate together to do something more effective as a whole. So
yeah,
that's great. My call to arms right there. Get to it.
That's no, fantastic. That's true. Like we don't stress enough the community and networking factors, that it really is strength in numbers and all of that. But when we say judgment free, it's like, you know, the only way we're going to evolve is if we allow each other to be open-minded, and to really journey into certain ideas and concepts, and to get validation, or at least seek others' opinions, without someone being like, absolutely like aggressive, or think that they're some righteous asshole, like, and just
Mhm.
think that whatever they're saying is the thing. If someone's saying it is something, they're full of shit. They know nothing. They have gambled themselves into a certain area of knowledge, and they are either trying to sell you something, or they are so hypnotized by that one thing that they don't look other places. And I'll tell you this right now, the answer isn't going to be in one place. There's going to be many answers. There's going to be many truths. Certain people are going to need to hear something that this guy didn't need to hear. So to be obsessed and love something, I get it. Like, there's certain people that take areas of knowledge and that's their specialty. True. But when it comes down to it, if you're consistently doing that, but then judging others because they're not studying what you're studying, you're full of shit. Bottom line. So we want to create a network, a community to where if you want to talk the splat turf, as Matt calls it, flat earth, or if you want to talk
Not milk reality,
astrology, huh?
or the not milk reality.
The not milk reality, if you want to jump out of your bathtub and yell at us about something, it's fine, do it. But
You
more
want to talk
so
about psychological things, anything really.
mental health, drug addiction, astrology, numerology, occult, religions, Jesus, Buddha.
We want you
Krishna.
to express. We want you to feel as though, because that's the whole point, is to be able to transcend everything and all things, and to do it and be able to have that outward expression of how you want to say and how you want to express it. But come to it with an open, clear, ready to speculate type of mind, the same way we want to take in your perspectives of what may be in your thought forms as well.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think I said it, but whether it's email us, I'd say as of right now, email us.
Yeah.
But I kind of prefer, because I am on there, is obviously friend us on whatever it's called, follow us on Facebook and Instagram as well,
And whatever it turns into. Yeah.
But Facebook itself, join the Transcendence forum, that group that's on our page this way, and show you're there, show your presence, and we'll start it up with you. We'll bring the talk. We'll make the discussions. We can privatize it or publicize it, depending on what it may be for yourself. It's an open forum for that reason. So,
yeah. And this is for the sake of, coming together, communing, and making sure that we're growing all together instead of fighting each other and contracting into ourselves. I mean, the past 2 years we've disconnected so much from each other, from ourselves. And so the only way that we're going to overcome this is to come together and to not judge each other, whether it's V, no V, R or D, red or blue,
tired
Islam
of giving my attention to that.
Huh?
I think there's so many people, whether they realize it or not, and I know for myself, tired of giving attention to that. I'm tired of hearing about it.
Right, me too. Who gives a shit?
It's not doing anything for us. It's not.
Cares. No one cares if you did or you didn't. It leads to nowhere. It's trivial. It's ridiculous. If you disagree, you disagree. If my favorite color's red and yours is blue, that's not a political reference, but I'm just saying, if I like death metal and you like country, I'm going to tell you I don't like country, but I'm not going to judge you for it. We can still share the same room. We can still talk, So if I did something, and because it's a genuine, hey, I'm concerned, so I'm not going to do this one thing that everyone insists, and because I have statistics to say, hey, I'm just right in my decision because I'm just making that decision for myself. If we're walking into a society where everyone thinks that they know better for the other person, then we are heading down the wrong path, and I can guarantee that it will not lead to anything but war. And whether that war is with guns or with words, it doesn't matter. It will lead to conflict and war. And so by looking at the state of the world and just say even the existence of this boogeyman that exists floating around in the air and all of that, so now we want to add another layer of judging one another and disconnecting, and then creating the hell that is awaiting for us if we keep continuing it, or have fun again, connect, not judge each other for our beliefs. And thank God the South Node leaves Sagittarius. And if you don't know what that means, just go to Google and put in South Node Sagittarius and read about it. But because beliefs have become rampant. But yeah, it's like, what, think about that. So is it more important to have a happy and coherent life with your fellow man, or is it to be right and be righteous, and to think that that's more worth more than to create these connections and whatever. And honestly, certain people I read, you need to see smiles, by the way. You know, that's the thing.
Yeah,
That like, if you don't see
exactly.
people smile, you get depressed, because we feed off each other. We got mirror neurons. Like, there's all the,
We need
look,
physical contact too.
it
Like,
goes, but it goes deeper than what, if you think you know it all, you're also full of shit. You know, so there's a lot of things that are, we don't take into account, and it's a perfect time to learn. It's a perfect time to connect, not to just go on Tinder and, you know, get someone to stick their finger in your little bum, but like, really to really connect. So yeah, it's every now and then something like, you know, maybe
I
not
know.
that specific, but yeah, I mean, let's laugh again. I mean, even the comedy is about the same. It's about the shit we're fighting about. You know, it's
I
like, oh my
know.
God, you see that stand up?
But
He was so funny. It's like, yeah, but he was talking about the things that we're arguing about. And it's like, okay, yeah, the jokes were okay. But can we get our mind off of all this stuff and get back into like evolving? Because we are in a state of de
yeah,
evolution. And I don't, if any of you are out there happy about it, you're sick. You're sick in the
yeah,
head. And I'm going to say it to you. You are, because that there's, if you think life is short, you are pissing it away at the moment.
mhm.
And to argue about, well, that person didn't get the jabby jab,
They're coming
you
from
have a realignment to do.
mhm. Coming from like this weird, like carnal, like instinctual base of right away trying to be reactive to every little thing. Like, let's think about this with everything we've just said about the egregore stuff, and we will. What we're gonna touch, and this what would help if we,
Oh, there's more.
we're able to open up these forums, of us talking about things. It allows for us to elaborate on more current event things and being able to relate this type of information and stuff with current events as well, which definitely we will and we want to do and stuff. But take whatever agenda is being pushed out there. Doesn't matter what it is. If the agenda is there and we're giving mind to it, that's what you're doing. You're giving mind to it, whether it's because of the fact that you disagree
Paying it
or you agree.
attention.
You're paying attention. You're paying mind to it. And if that's something that you are sick of and you don't want it no more, or you're tired of it, or it's causing some sort of havoc or hell in your life and stuff, the more you have it on your mind, whether it's the fact of being mad about it or something like that, the more you're sending those rapid vibrations to it and causing it to be in motion more. Plain and simple.
Yeah.
Plain and simple. But if you can pull back that mind and pull back that attention of it and bring yourself into a stillness, because that may be what you have to do first, because you're so conditioned to be receptive and reactive to whatever the frequency that's being pushed out or agenda that's being pushed out onto you.
They
You may
got
have
you
to
by the
learn.
balls, or
Yes, it's
no
got you.
balls, whatever is there.
Be able to come to an equilibrium, and that may take a bit. It may take a lot of practice. It may be
Might hurt.
frustrating and everything and stuff too, but you have to do it. If your desire and your will is strong enough, it will be accomplished if you just do it and stuff. So then coming from that, then you can start to redivert your attention, your awareness, your mindfulness into the things that will bring you the things you actually desire, the things that you're saying that the other thing is holding you back from, and you start putting that type of understanding that's coming to you in that space, and start learning how to construct the intended type of idea and action and thinking that needs to come along with going to it that way. If you really want to combat that type of ideal that's going on, or that type of agenda, if anything, that's the way to do it, is construct community in that sense, to stop paying it attention, stop paying it mind, and developing and building up your own, the thing that's really going to generate the true one sense, that love, that omnipotent, omnipresent type of derivement, and going towards more of a real brighter type of way then you can start cultivating that rather than feeding the fucking thing you don't want. Plain simple.
Yep.
A lot of word salad, but
that's all right. But like, I get more energy from the, like, we like to teach, we like to learn, but really this is, I think, a deep at the core of many people that they do want to let it go and they're caught up in it. And it's why we thought the pendulum and egregore topic is perfect. It's perfect because if there is some sort of metaphysical function that we are under spells, and the people that woke up are the ones that realize it's a spell. If we could be the conduit, we can give people the ability to not only wake up, but then they become the people that wake other people up, and then it starts becoming a domino effect. And I mean, the intentions really are, it's to have a good life. It's to remember to have fun again. It's to enjoy everything. It's like, God, even the sports that we watch and we're supposed to enjoy, it's like, well, the players didn't all get the V's. And there's drama. There's everywhere you look. It's like, and then there's the fans that agree with it. And it's like, okay, we're always going to disagree and agree. But like, look, you know what I think really is the cause of issue? The fear of death. We should learn that bad things happen and that a lot of us will die earlier than later. Some of us will die later than whatever. It don't matter. Because you're so worried about it and you're so worried about controlling other people, you don't even have sight of what you are and what how you're going to be on your deathbed going, I cared more about telling that guy to do what I wanted him to do than I actually enjoyed my life. And some people, I hear, oh God, I hear the out of the bathtub jerk offs going, I enjoyed my life and I did tell people.
Splashing everywhere.
But, and you're always going to have schmucks and trolls, whatever.
Pay them no mind.
Right. It doesn't matter. And so this is a call to arms. We try and say it all the time. We are looking for people that are like-minded or not so like-minded, but that want to evolve, want to have fun, want to have good lives, want to learn, not judge each other. And every time, of course, there, within everything, of course, there's going to be conflict, but friction is healthy too, because with friction, you create a fight, you start a whole new, like you create something with friction too. So to not be afraid of negative emotions, to not be afraid of death, to not be afraid of what people think, to not be afraid of your government, to not be afraid of the trolls. It's like drop the fear, learn to have a good time, and then responsibly with discernment. Don't become this just rebel, anarchist fucking jerk off too. It's like, well, I'm fine. I'm gonna do what I want. I'm gonna go blow up the grocery store because I'm free. And it's like
that's another part of the problem as well. And I think Mark Stavish actually talked about it, and something I was listening to is the fact that there's been over time a rejection against authority, and
in the wrong manner. Yeah, right. Or in the non-productive.
But in anything. Yeah. In any sort of thing, like, and it even comes with down to even the occult stuff as well, that there's been a rejection of some sort of authority on the fact of, it's become so that it's like, it's just, what I mean? Like, it's too playful, and it's childish. Yes, it lacks maturity. And there needs to be a form of structure as well and stuff in the development. This is that, once again, it goes back to structure, restriction, reality, Saturn, everything. We're in a very real structured reality as well, too.
Usually the people
comes into existence.
Yeah, but the people that want to create anarchy, the ones that are doing the wrongful anarchy, the ones that want to just destroy and all that, that's just a projection of themselves that they probably either don't like their life or themselves so much to the point where they want to destroy because they want to destroy themselves. They like the destruction because deep down inside themselves, they're looking to destroy the poison within them, but they're externalizing it and thinking it's the outer world, when yet it's just a projection of the inner world. That's how they feel on the inside. So, and what's kind of crazy is, so when you understand psychology and all of this stuff, and you realize that people's actions are just reflections of themselves and that they're just projections, it's like, sometimes it's, when you know this stuff, unless you are heartless, it's like, man, I could see why that person acts that way. And almost like, because you understand them, you're like, I'm not really even that mad at the person. I could see how the upbringing, I could see how they ended up. It's like, but in the end, though, it's like, yeah, but you got to be that Saturnian person to those people and be very fatherly or have discernment and say, dude, you're fucking up. Like, no, you're wrong. No, you're a moron. Like, there is a way to belittle someone because they're hurting other people or things and destroying the wrong things. Let's destroy the things that are giving us limitations to just not be ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's an act. It's a form of nurturing as well. In that sense, it takes that. It's that disciplinary action as well. You know, and I also think, this is my opinion, but I do think that in some sort of way, maybe not exactly how I'm about to say, but I do feel that, you know, the human perpetuators of this very chaotic or disharmonious like thing, I feel like is, you know, if they understand, especially if they understand how this all works and everything, and they use and practice these sort of techniques and have this sort of form and structure, you know, I think it's the fact is that they realize that they've been able to grasp, or at least they think, or it seems like they've been able to grasp and take control or a hold of something as well, and make it of their for themselves and of their own. And if there is such thing as this whole thing of parallel universes, and if we are in a cyclical way of death and rebirth and everything, then it's almost like trying to hold on to that physical immortality. And therefore, this is why it stays and it disrupts our cosmic consciousness, our cosmic knowing of the truth. And it's like, because they know their fate and what is to come of them, so therefore they must revert the whole entire structure of our reality to keep going backwards and staying in the dark, because if not, then they lose it all. And that's where you see where they don't gain. Even though it looks like the dark is gaining, they're not gaining, because they have to keep up the charade. It's the same thing where it's like, you know what they say about, you know, telling a lie. You always have to always tell another lie to keep up with the first lie, when rather than it is the truth to stay in, because the truth will set you free. So, but yeah, that's once again, I said, that's kind of my opinion. You could go into that however you want and flip that into Anunnaki. You can flip that into anything you want and sort of say, and
the
stuff,
police
but
lineup out.
Huh? Yes, exactly. The whole police lineup thing. You could go into
The
it, whatever.
Illuminati, the Anunnaki, the
the
reptilians,
Rothschilds,
the
Rockefellers,
Archons.
whatever you want to do. But it's not about the who. It's about the why. It's about the what does it do? What can it potentially do? And if that's the case, what can I potentially do?
No, not who. Why, what, how?
Yes, and the how too. Okay, how?
Well, the how is like, that's like, you know, how is, by knowing how, then you learn how to disconnect or prevent it.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So,
exactly.
And the why, I guess, you know, that I think that comes later on. I think that's the finale. Like,
and I think
that's why they were doing it.
Yeah. And I think the why needs to be to a degree, because it's like, that's
close to like the what or the who. God.
Yeah, because it's right? Like why. Yes, yeah, exactly. It kind of goes a little bit with the whole who thing.
Who and why, I think, are secondary.
Yes, because yes, there's the why of why am I wanting this? Why am I intending this? But the what is the outside of you, what the intention is possibly and stuff. That's a different story than the why of being like, why are they doing this?
You're not gonna. They want you to. Whoever they is, want you to keep looking for that, because that keeps you on the search. Because then, you know how many times we ended up at like we thought we would figure out who it was and why they did it, and then we find contradictory information, which is why go follow Quantum of Conscience, Matt McKinley, who makes great points and says every time that I'll use Flat Earth is like, so the Flat Earth people, they come up with all these things and it looks like they're true, and then this guy comes out of left field with the globe and says, yeah, but this. And then it's like, well, God, there's so many things that could be, it's like the truths on both sides tend to battle each other, and they could be very prevalent. They could be very convincing. I mean, I have an opinion on that. I know what I believe on that thing, and that's due to, I think, logic. And I know that, like, I won't go there, but more so any of it, put it this way, you can always find, actually, you know what? We'll use the simple mom response, right? Oh, you looking on the internet again? I can find anything on the internet. I could convince you, I could go find facts to prove any one of my points on the internet, or who's doing it and all that. Okay, you can. And it could tell all of this, you can. But when you get deep into research and you do know where you're going and what, you use your inner tuning fork and your intuition, there is a truth. There isn't something where, like, there is a definitive end to this where you're going to be like, no, this is definitely it. And I think that's vast, meaning it's not one thing. I think the truth is elusive. And with many of us, it's going to be different. But in the end, it will be the same, because it's always going to be back to getting back to self. And then with everything we just talked about, that whole call to arms, I would say is the closest thing to truth, at least at this particular moment in time.
Yeah. The real truth is in actual being able to understand one another through actual communication as well.
And yourself.
And stuff. And the whole thing about that, real quick, that whole thing about the why, like, let's remember what we just said about feeding egregores. If you're sitting there going into the why something is, that means you're going out into the ether and you're pulling that potential inwards to yourself, materializing it in thought, and then materializing it in your subconscious that ends up forming in some sort of way of you end up thinking, feeling, and doing, or something like that. And that gets passed on in some sort of expression outwardly to others as well. Therefore, you're only perpetuating it further. And the very thing that you're so mad about and stuff like that, you become a benefactor in it.
The egregore wants to keep feeding on you. It wants your attention on it. So guess what? It's going to find its way to pull something out of the ether to keep you looking and to keep you going. And really, I'm obsessed with Matt because he's right. He's right about that. That screen, that reality screen, that egregore wants you to continue to look. It's going to give you evidence. You're going to think you have the answer. And then here comes some other evidence where it's, oh no, now I don't. So you're going to keep investigating it. You're going to keep focusing on it. You're going to keep giving it attention. This is the trick. This is the trickster of reality, is that it's either you think your own thoughts and follow your own journey and whatever, and you're not going to be a superhero. You're not. You have your rare ones like David Weiss, who I think is actually kind of a little bit of a superhero, because but I think some people are meant to do this purpose. But when you have thousands of BitChute channels coming up with all these different things, it's like, no, that's the egregore. Because look, if you're not within, say, the CIA or the government, whatever, it's like any Joe Schmo could come up with a theory, push it out there. It sounds plausible, but that's what's that doing for you? So it goes back to also the simplicity of what's it doing for you? Can you be concrete with it? Well, I have paperwork and I have this thing and there was this patent in Google and whatever. That's the trail. You're being like, if it's not definite, if you're not that, like, with the shape of where we are, right? If you can't go up there, you don't know. Bottom line, if you have to take someone's word on a video, if you have to take someone's, if you just have to take someone's word for it, I'm just going to bet 90% of the time, 95% of the time, egregore, control mechanism, something to keep you focused outside of yourself. And I would and even if this is a euphemism or like a metaphor for something, honestly, I think it's a great principle to follow anyway. What's this doing for myself? Eliminate all the metaphysics and say, what's this really doing for me? And in the coming times, if to say the place we live in starts to fall apart, society, government, money, finance, all that, by putting up a bunch of BitChute videos about this or that, knowing that probably 75% of the population isn't going to watch your video or believe you, or you're going to have a lot of things, is that going to benefit you 5 years from now when there's certain things could potentially be, where there's going to be lack of certain things or whatever? Like, it's a time to be smart about what you focus on. And, and if you don't want to take our word for it, it's okay. This is something that resonates with me and Gio and a lot of
once
people.
Again, we're not asking you to believe in us or anything that we're saying, but it's the fact of if you
resonate with it.
Yes. It's a call to give yourself a chance, value yourself enough to sit there and being like, hold on, wait a minute. Do I really know me? Do I really know the true soul of me, the purpose of what's trying to come forth? Am I holding myself back? I have this that I don't like in my life and this and that and stuff. I'm frustrated. I'm stressed out or whatever and stuff. Can I invest a little bit of this type of thinking and concepts and speculation and maybe some practice and technique or something like that to maybe potentially help myself, and it could in turn help others as well and stuff. So it's like, we're gonna further, obviously, take this to where it can as well, because in this we are going to be able to relay this to, as that's the whole thing. We're constantly in the things that we go into, we're doing it in some sort of cyclical nature, not on purpose, but we're seeing that that's the cyclical nature of even how we're going into certain topics. It's a constant in breath and out breath, in breath and out breath of things, because we're seeing how everything is connected in that way as well. So this is going to lead, as we kind of went more so of looking at things and going inward, it's going to go back outward. And you'll see also how, I'm sure we'll get to the point where we're going to relay as far as, whether,
Back on
the earth.
astrology again.
Yeah, the astrology, earth, what it is, what it could possibly be and stuff, how it functions as well with this type of understanding. So we're going to go to that as well. But yes, once again, join us on Facebook, especially join us on Instagram as well. Let's start talking about these things. We want to hear from you as well. You can email us if you have to, if it's something that's more private as well. You also can message us there on Facebook as well. Don't be shy. We're accepting. We check everything as well and stuff too. So, do that as well. Like, let's be honest. Me and Ray aren't making a dime from this. It's because of the pure sense of the fact that this is a true intentional thing that we feel is important to share and to speculate on, and to utilize these types of practices and understand other people's perspectives, and for us to even gain perspective through others as well, and to build this. And that's the true thing that's going to possibly, combat these, so say, negative egregores that potentially exist, by creating ones that are more harmonious and balanced and unified in nature as well. So, yeah. And with doing that and being able to congregate all together and have this sort of sense of community, it allows us to better be able to create that space even more, and that platform to be able to have this type of community as well, and to better secure it and make it more effective as well. So it's one helping other, and it's a constant back and forth of giving and receiving. It's the in breath, out breath. Like I said, you could see that in all parts of nature, all parts of everything, anything you do. So that's the call. Email us if you have to. Facebook, Instagram. Join the Transcendence forum on Facebook. I'd like to start it from there, and then move it elsewhere.
Rome wasn't built in a day, but it definitely has almost been a year. We've gained a fair amount of people, and I do believe our content will get better. So with your help, we could do more. We want to give other people a platform as well. We want to have more guests. We want to build community. We want to learn. We want to better our lives and yours. And I think we could all do it together and get off just this focus that we have, and stop feeding this monster we call, society. So on that note, Gio, anything else?
Nope. Love you all. Till next time.
I love you too. And let's get going. Let's get moving. Peace.
Adios.